At the age of 8, I was taken back from the orphanage by the wealthy Liang family and became the true heiress everyone envied, but 10 years later, they suddenly realized that the fake heiress they had cruelly driven out had become a top-tier, revered divine physician. As for me, the true heiress, I was mediocre, clumsy, and good for nothing in the daily comparisons and disdain. It felt as though I had become the criminal who had usurped someone else's place the day the fake heiress got caught up in a violent hospital dispute and was brutally killed by a patient's family. Everyone completely lost their minds. To quell the rumors that the fake heiress had caused a patient's death and to protect her reputation, my parents actually tried to offer me up as a sacrificial lamb to appease the aggrieved family, but my powerful childhood sweetheart intervened. He honored the marriage contract and married me, but only so he could torment me with his own hands. This is all your fault. So what if you're the biological child? If you hadn't come back and hugged all the Liang family's resources, Vivian would never have been driven out of the house and forced to suffer in that third-rate hospital. She was destined for greatness, and you're the one who ruined her life. You must atone for what you did to Vivian. Later, I was forced to kneel and kowtow before the portrait of the fake heiress until I breathed my last. When I opened my eyes again, I had gone back in time to the day the Liang family came to the orphanage to pick me up. The moment my parents saw me, they turned and walked away without a second thought. In that instant, I understood. They had been reborn too. Chapter 1. In my past life, it was on this very day, the black luxury car pulled up at the door opened, and my biological mother, Lady Liang, would step out wearing a high-end tailored suit. Then, with red eyes, she would hug me and choke out, "My child, Mom has finally found you." Meanwhile, Vivian's father stood behind her, his expression stern yet relieved. Then I was taken into that gilded cage, beginning a decade of life as insignificant as dust, but this time is different. Vivian's mother's gaze fell upon my face. The look in her eyes wasn't the mix of excitement and guilt from our first meeting in a past life, but icy coldness. Vivian's father was also staring at me. His expression was even more direct, undisguised disdain and wariness, as if I were some kind of plague bringer, an ill omen. There were no hugs, no tears, not even a single question. Vivian, who had come with them, tilted her head and looked at me curiously. Then, looking up, she tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mom, is she the sister we're taking home? She's so ugly." Vivian's mother seemed startled, quickly averted her gaze, crouched down, and pulled Vivian into her arms, her voice so tender it could almost drip with affection. "I don't know him. Just someone unimportant. Be a good girl. Vivian, let's go. This place is too unlucky." Her voice wasn't lowered, clearly reaching my ears. Unimportant. I instantly understood. They were reborn too. They were reborn, carrying with them all the memories and resentment from their past life, memories of me as mediocre, clumsy, utterly useless, and the reason they lost their prodigy of a foster daughter, the divine healer. So, without a moment's hesitation, they abandoned me. The moment they recognized me, they made a decision completely opposite to the one in their previous life. Caspian's gaze fell upon me once more. Gone was the curiosity, replaced by a scrutinizing look tinged with a faint, adult-like indifference. He probably remembers too, remembers how, in our past life, he married me to atone for his sins, only to torment me day after day, ultimately forcing me to kneel to my death before Vivian's portrait. No, Vivian is still alive. Still the brilliant future miracle doctor in their eyes. As for me, I'm merely a jinx and a burden they've identified early on, someone they need to steer clear of immediately. "Let's go." Vivian's father uttered the two words coldly, then put his arms around his wife and daughter and turned away without a moment's hesitation. There wasn't a trace of reluctance. The black luxury car sped off, kicking up a cloud of dust that covered my face. I stood there, watching the direction the car had vanished. Within this 8-year-old child's body resided the soul of a 28-year-old who had endured immense suffering and met a tragic end. The soul was screaming, weeping blood, demanding to know why, but in the end, all voices fell silent, leaving only boundless desolation and cold. Fine, so be it. In this life, I never have to step into that icebox called home again. I don't have to beg for a shred of warmth that was never coming. I don't have to live in someone else's shadow, constantly compared, found wanting, and finally pushed out to take the fall. The headmistress of the orphanage, whom we called Mama, walked over. She sighed and patted my head. "Don't be sad, shall you? That couple, perhaps they just weren't meant for you." I said nothing. My fate, my chance at belonging, had already been severed by that family in my past life. They cut the thread with their own hands. A few days later, a couple dressed simply but neatly arrived at the orphanage. They were middle school teachers, surnamed Zhang, who had no children of their own and wished to adopt one. The headmistress brought me before them. Mrs. Joan crouched down, looked at me, her eyes gentle like the waters of a spring lake. She gently took my hand, her voice soft, as if afraid of startling me. "Child, would you like to come home with us? We'll take very good care of you." Mr. Joan stood behind her, his expression somewhat stern, yet his eyes held the same gentleness and anticipation. I looked at them. For a long, long time in my past life, I had yearned for a look like that. I yearned for it for 10 years, and never received it, not even until the day I died. My throat tightened, and my voice sounded childlike. Will you give me a new name? Mother Zhong paused for a moment, exchanged a glance with Father Zhong, and then smiled warmly. Of course, what name would you like? We can think of one together. I thought for a moment and said, Lucia, Lucia, Lucia. I want to be happy for a lifetime. Mother Zhong's eyes lit up instantly. She hugged me tightly, her voice choked with emotion. Yes, yes. Lucia, Lucia, let's go home. Mom and Dad will take you home. This time, the feeling of being embraced was warm. The Zhong family home is not large, a simple and cozy 2-bedroom, 1-living-room old house. My room faces south, with bright windows. Auntie Zhong changed my bedsheet to one with small floral patterns, and my desk is now adorned with newly purchased stationery and a desk lamp. Life is as plain as water. Yet it is a sweetness I never tasted in my previous life. Uncle Zhong doesn't talk much, but he checks my homework every day after work and patiently explains the problems to me. Auntie Zhong prepares delicious meals in various ways. In the evenings, she sits by my bed, reads me storybooks, or hums softly to lull me to sleep. They gave me unconditional love and a sense of security. I am no longer the true heiress who is cautious, sensitive, and insecure in the Liang family. I am Lucia, the cherished daughter of the Zhong family. I study hard not only to live up to this love but also because I know that knowledge is power and the foundation of my life. The studies I neglected and dismissed as useless in my past life, I now pick up and absorb with an insatiable thirst. Occasionally, I come across news about the Liang family on TV or in the social news section of the newspaper. It's mostly about Vivian, genius girl Vivian, who at 3 could identify 100 herbs and at 5 could prescribe, a once-in-a-millennium prodigy in traditional Chinese medicine. The Liang couple spare no effort in nurturing their beloved daughter, investing tens of millions to build a private traditional Chinese medicine lab, a mysterious heir to ancient medicine, a glimpse into the daily life of young prodigy Vivian. In the footage, Vivian, dressed in custom-made Hanfu or Cheongsam, is surrounded by her parents, confidently speaking to the interviewer while reciting a series of seemingly profound herbal formulas. Vivian's parents look at her with unconcealed pride and affection, a shrewd anticipation of reaping substantial rewards in the future, like investing in a promising stock. Caspian often appeared by her side, acting as her family friend brother. At a young age, she had already learned to face the camera with a reserved and distant attitude, but when standing next to Vivian, her body would slightly lean towards her, a protective stance. I know that the Liang family is pouring all their resources into building Vivian's divine doctor persona, investing in creating momentum for the future, and Vivian, clearly, was enjoying the feeling of being the center of attention. Reading these reports, I feel a deep sense of calm, even a slight urge to laugh. Identifying hundreds of herbs at age 3 in my past life, during my 10 years with the Liang family, I never once saw Vivian show any interest in medicinal herbs. She only cared for designer clothes and handbags. Memorizing a few prescriptions was just to appease the media and her parents. Prescribing remedies at age 5, she often confuses even the most basic pharmacology, a once-in-a-millennium talent, maybe, indeed a genius when it comes to hype and packaging. But I didn't say anything. I simply turned off the TV, put away the newspaper, and continued solving my math problems or memorizing English words. Mother Zhong would sometimes pat my head gently and say, "Our Lucia is also very good. The teacher praised you again today." I leaned against her and nodded vigorously. Yes, I am great. I'm going to be better and better. I don't need to be put on a pedestal. I just need to keep my feet on the ground and become the real Lucia. Time flew by, peaceful and fulfilling. I graduated from elementary school with top marks, got into the best middle school in the city, and then, with equally outstanding results, was admitted to Yunqing One High School, the most prestigious private high school in the city. This school is renowned for its high tuition fees and top-notch educational resources, while also admitting a small number of exceptionally talented students from ordinary backgrounds, offering them substantial scholarships. I know Vivian is also at Yunqing One High School. Given the Liang family's wealth and their maintenance of her genius persona, she must be here, but I didn't pay it any mind. Yunqing One High School is huge, and since we're in different classes, even on different floors, we don't run into each other often. The first day of school, new students arrived. I wore a simple white t-shirt and jeans, carrying my backpack, and handled the paperwork on my own. Both Mr. and Mrs. Zhong had classes today, so I said I could manage by myself. Just outside the dean's office, I encountered Vivian, who was being escorted in by her parents like a star surrounded by admirers. Years had passed, and she had grown even more beautiful, wearing an expensive designer dress, with delicate light makeup, and her hair impeccably styled. Several people surrounded her, including her parents, Caspian, and a few others who looked like assistants or nannies, carrying her luggage. bags, and water bottles, the grand procession caught the attention of students and parents around, who couldn't help but glance over. Vivian basked in the attention, her chin lifted like a proud peacock. Vivian's parents also noticed me. Their gaze lingered on me for a moment. My clothes were plain, but I stood tall, my gaze clear and calm, showing none of the dishevelment or timidity they had expected. Vivian's mother's brow barely furrowed, a fleeting hint of confusion in her eyes quickly replaced by her usual indifference. Vivian's father simply averted his gaze, as if looking at her would taint his eyes. They whispered something to Vivian, likely telling her to stay away from certain unsavory characters. Caspian also noticed me. The boy had grown taller, his features handsome and his demeanor cool and aloof. His gaze fell on my face, more complex and scrutinizing than that fleeting glance at the orphanage entrance years ago, as if wondering how someone they had left to rot in the mud could now be standing at Yunshin No. 1 high school. But I didn't give him more time to observe me. Calmly, I averted my eyes, holding the completed paperwork, and turned to head toward the teaching building. "Hey, you," a slightly sharp female voice called out from behind. "It's Vivian." She somehow broke free from her parents, quickly stepped forward to block my path, and scrutinized me with a critical gaze. "Are you the one who got in on a scholarship?" Her voice was neither too loud nor too soft, just enough for those around to hear. I stopped, looking at her. "What's the matter?" Vivian pursed her lips, her tone dripping with natural superiority. "Nothing much. Just reminding you that this isn't some place where just anyone can come and loaf around, especially people like you who only got in through charity. You'd better behave and stay out of the way." Her words were harsh and rude. Some classmates began whispering among themselves. I suddenly found it rather amusing. In my past life, I was always yielding and humble to a fault, yet I never earned a single kind look from her. In the end, I was even dragged down to my death because of her. In this life, I keep my distance, but she's the one who insists on pushing her way in to make her presence known. "Are you done?" I said flatly. "If you're finished, please move. You're in my way." Vivian probably didn't expect this reaction from me. No shame, no angry retort. It was like punching a pillow. Her face flushed, and she seemed about to say more when Caspian walked over and pulled her aside. "Vivian, your parents are waiting for you." Caspian's voice was devoid of warmth, yet his gaze settled on my face, probing. Vivian shot me a glare, shook off Caspian's hand, gave a disdainful snort, and turned back to the circle of her parents. Vivian's mother immediately wrapped an arm around her, murmuring words of comfort, while her eyes held a clear warning for me. Vivian's father told Caspian, "Caspian, keep an eye on Vivian and make sure no irrelevant people bother her." Irrelevant people? I smirked and left without looking back. Good. From now on, we are complete and utter strangers. Chapter 2. Life at Yunshin No. 1 high school settled into a steady routine. I was in the advanced class, where the coursework was heavy and the competition fierce, but I thrived in it. The intelligence I had squandered and the regrets I had accumulated in my past life were now all channeled into my drive to learn. I enjoyed the joy of solving difficult problems and the freedom of swimming in the ocean of knowledge. I no longer study to please anyone or prove anything to anyone. I simply do it because I enjoy it. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Zhong, gave me the greatest support. They never ask me about my ranking, only if I'm tired or happy. The atmosphere at home is always warm and peaceful. My strongest support. Occasionally, I still hear rumors about Vivian. She's in the international class, where most students are either rich or well-connected. The persona the Liang family created for her is also well known at school, the young genius doctor. It is said that she always keeps an acupuncture kit and thread-bound medical books in her desk, often accidentally dropping a few technical terms in front of her classmates, or casually pointing out that someone looks unwell, possibly with an underlying condition, which always draws gasps of amazement. There is even a dedicated section for her on the school forum, where a group of admirers share her miracles daily. Like Vivian, the goddess looked at me once and said I had spleen and stomach disharmony, and when I thought about it at home, I realized I had been suffering from indigestion lately. Or Vivian the senior is so amazing, she fixed someone's sprain in gym class with just a few presses. I find it all utterly ridiculous. Vivian's amateurish medical skills in her past life were so bad that she could prescribe absurd remedies for a simple cold. In this life, by rote memorization of a few terms and routines, coupled with the relentless marketing by the Liang family, she has managed to fool so many people. Caspian and Vivian are in the same class, and in everyone's eyes, they are the default couple. Caspian is a campus celebrity, top of his class, from a prominent family, and strikingly handsome. His attitude towards Vivian seems protective, but based on my understanding of him from a past life, it feels more like a perfunctory duty and an investment in her future as a master healer. We are like two parallel lines. moving along our own separate paths, never meant to intersect. It wasn't until after the midterm exams in the first semester of my freshman year, the school bulletin board posted the honor roll, and my name was at the very top, my total score leaving the runner-up dozens of points behind. As for Vivian, her ranking in the international class was decent, but it was nowhere near comparable to my results. On the day the results were posted, a crowd had gathered around the bulletin board. As I passed by, I overheard a few girls whispering, "Lucia is first again, she's so strong." I heard her family are just ordinary teachers, it's all thanks to her own efforts. She's also very pretty, with great poise. I heard she has a good temper too, just not very talkative. She's way better than some who are just famous in name. A girl lowered her voice and nodded towards the international class. "Shoo, keep it down, he's the little divine doctor." With plenty of fans, I didn't pay much attention and was about to leave when I saw Vivian and Caspian walking over, surrounded by a crowd. Vivian was clearly here to check the rankings, perhaps to see if her reputation as a genius would be reflected in her grades. Her eyes scanned the red list, and when she saw my name and score at the top, her expression noticeably stiffened. She quickly found her ranking, which wasn't bad in the international class, but when placed next to me, the top student of the entire grade, she instantly paled in comparison. She bit her lip, her face flashing with frustration and anger. Caspian also saw my name and score. His eyes flickered as he looked at me, his gaze now carrying something unspoken, like an assessment, or perhaps surprise. Vivian noticed Caspian's gaze and immediately tugged at his sleeve, her voice sweet and pouty, tinged with grievance. "Caspian, the questions this time were so obscure, I didn't get to review them. Some people just study hard, big deal." Caspian averted his gaze, gave a non-committal and said nothing more. I couldn't be bothered to engage. Turning to head back to the classroom, "Lucia," Vivian suddenly called out, her voice raised to stop me. I stopped in my tracks and looked back. She took a few steps forward, tilting her chin up in an attempt to look down on me, but her lack of height made the effort seem almost comical. "Don't think getting first place makes you special," she sneered. "In this world, what matters is well-rounded capability and connections. What good is being book smart? You'll still end up working for someone else your whole life." Her words provoked a ripple of hushed murmurs from those around us. The remark was both vicious and utterly lacking in class. I watched her calmly for a moment before asking, "Vivian, is it true you're well-versed in medicine?" Vivian was taken aback, not expecting me to ask that. She then straightened her chest, revealing a confident yet reserved smile. "I have a basic understanding, it's just family tradition, cultivated since childhood." "Oh," I nodded, my tone still calm. "Then you must pay great attention to health preservation. However, to be frank, your face is flushed, your voice is high and hurried, and though I can't see your tongue coating, I notice a slight bluish tint under your eyes, which suggests a condition of excessive liver fire and restlessness. A divine doctor should cultivate their character and be cautious with their words and actions, otherwise, it may hinder progress in medical skills and could easily lead to misdiagnosis." My words were delivered at a steady pace, using the half-literary, half-colloquial tone she often employed to deceive people. The surroundings instantly fell silent. Everyone was stunned, including Vivian herself. Her smile froze on her face, her complexion flushing and paling in rapid succession. What did she know about genuine diagnostic methods? Her usual spiel was just a pre-memorized script. My words sounded plausible enough, but were actually a mix of truth and bluff. Yet, they happened to hit the mark, pinpointing her recent state of irritability and poor sleep, genuine symptoms fueled by her anxiety over grades and public image. "You, how dare you spout such nonsense?" Vivian snapped, her anger tinged with humiliation. "What do you know about medicine? Who are you to judge me? I don't understand," I admitted frankly. "I'm just a bookworm." However, as stated in the foundational text of traditional Chinese medicine, the Yellow Emperor's inner canon, anger harms the liver, joy harms the heart, overthinking harms the spleen, sorrow harms the lungs, and fear harms the kidneys. Given Vivian's family background in this field, she surely knows this better than I do. Extreme emotional swings are the most damaging to one's health. You do well to heed this advice. With that, I turned away from her rapidly changing expression and left without another glance. From behind me came the sound of Vivian's furious voice and the hushed whispers of onlookers. Caspian seemed to say something, his voice too low for me to catch. This small encounter was like a stone thrown into a seemingly calm lake. Soon, new rumors about me began to circulate around school. "Did you hear? That top student Lucia from the regular class, she seems to have some knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine. She even left Vivian speechless last time. Really, isn't she just good at studying? Maybe she's just modest about her true skills." Vivian talks about her medical expertise all the time, but I've never seen her actually treat anyone. Don't say that. Vivian's fan club is pretty powerful. These rumors naturally reached Vivian's ears. She became even more displeased with me, but since I spent most of my time in classrooms or the library, and we had no interaction, she couldn't find an opportunity to confront me. As for Caspian, in the few chance encounters we had on campus afterwards, his gaze would always linger on me a moment longer, thoughtful and probing. Once in the library, he even took the initiative to sit directly across from me. He didn't speak a word all evening, just quietly read his book, yet his presence was overwhelmingly palpable. I knew he was observing me. Perhaps it was my distinctly different demeanor, or perhaps it was my ambiguous medical commentary that made him, a reborn individual, feel a flicker of uncertainty towards me. This new variable, but I don't care. He observes his, I study mine. In this life, there's no role for the Liang family or Caspian in my script. The calm was shattered during a school-wide assembly. The school invited a renowned educationist to give a lecture, followed by a brief awards ceremony to recognize students who excelled in their midterm exams. I, along with the other students who ranked in the top 10 of our grade, went on stage to receive the awards. Standing on the stage, I could feel countless pairs of eyes on me from the audience. Among them, two gazes felt particularly intense. A message from Vivian, brimming with jealousy and resentment, another from Caspian, complex and hard to decipher. The vice principal was the one presenting the awards. When he called my name, he added a few extra words. Lucia is not only an outstanding student academically, but also excels in every aspect. She is humble, helpful, and a role model for her peers. What's even more commendable is that she comes from a humble teacher's family and has achieved all this through her own hard work, earning the respect of us all. Thunderous applause erupted from the audience. I bowed in gratitude, my gaze calmly sweeping across the crowd. As I glanced in the direction of Vivian's parents, I noticed their expression seemed a bit unnatural. Vivian's mother even subconsciously averted her eyes from mine, while Vivian's father frowned, looking at the dazzling me on stage, then glanced sideways at Vivian, who, despite her glamorous appearance, now wore a twisted expression of jealousy. His eyes briefly flickering with a minuscule, perhaps unrecognized, trace of doubt. The doubt vanished quickly, and his usual expression, one full of anticipation and doting affection for Vivian, returned. My heart remained utterly calm. Their opinions had long ceased to matter to me. After the meeting adjourned, the crowd bustled about. I was about to head back to the classroom when Caspian blocked my way. Lucia, he called my name, his voice clear and youthful, yet carrying a maturity beyond his years. I looked up at him. Is there something? He paused for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully, then asked, do you really understand traditional Chinese medicine? It's still about this. After all, I don't know. I replied decisively. I just said that off the cuff last time. What? Is Caspian interested in traditional Chinese medicine? Isn't your childhood sweetheart already a ready-made miracle doctor? I deliberately emphasized the words childhood sweetheart and miracle doctor, speaking in a flat tone that didn't reveal any sarcasm, but Caspian's expression subtly changed. He gave me a deep look, his gaze sharp as if it could pierce through my skin and see into my soul. You and her are very different. Of course not. I found it a bit amusing. No two leaves in the world are exactly the same. Caspian, if there's nothing else, I need to get back to studying. After saying that, I walked around him and left directly. After taking a few steps, I could still feel his deep, probing gaze on my back. Different, yes, of course it's different. That Adeline from a past life, timid, meek, yearning for love yet never receiving it, who ultimately met a tragic end. She died on that cold, hopeless night. The one living now is Lucia. She is Lucia, enveloped in love, confident and poised, living only for herself and those who cherish her. Your rebirth is your own business. My new life is not to be disturbed by anyone. Chapter 3. Vivian's miracle doctor persona grew increasingly prominent, fueled by the Liang family's relentless financial backing and media packaging. She was no longer content with just basking in the adulation within the small circle of her school and began to extend her reach to broader fields. During her winter break of her first year in high school, a reality show named Chronicles of Genius Teens premiered, where Vivian was prominently featured as the once-in-a-millennium girl of traditional Chinese medicine. In the show, she wore a modified hanfu, speaking confidently to the camera in a traditionally styled study arranged by the production team, discussing the Yellow Emperor's inner canon and treatise on cold damage disorders, and occasionally dropping a cryptic piece of health advice. The production team also arranged for a so-called grandmaster of traditional Chinese medicine to connect remotely, offering her guidance and praise. Calling her exceptionally gifted and a formidable young talent, Vivian's parents were regular fixtures on the show, openly displaying their immense pride and adoration for their daughter on camera. They recounted how they discovered her talent and spared no effort in nurturing it, their words masterfully crafting an image of devoted, self-sacrificing parents dedicated to preserving traditional culture. Caspian also made occasional appearances, cast in the role of a longtime family friend and protective older brother. He was a man of few words, but his presence was always impeccably mannered. He would stand quietly by Vivian's side, handing her water or draping a shawl over her shoulders, earning him a chorus of online praise for being so warm and handsome. The show enjoyed high ratings, and Vivian amassed a massive fanbase almost overnight. With her Weibo follower count skyrocketing, she started a live stream, ostensibly to popularize traditional Chinese medicine knowledge and promote national studies. In reality, it was an exercise in looking flawlessly made up. Seated before an elaborately designed backdrop, she would read from scripts prepared by her team, fielding pre-screened, superficial questions about wellness, all while offering glimpses of the Liang family mansion and her own dazzling walk-in closet filled with luxury goods. Fans were raving, "Vivian has such an elegant aura, now this is a true socialite, so talented and cultured, goddess, look at me, I've been having trouble sleeping lately, what should I do?" The Zhong family TV was rarely on, but whenever I scrolled through news on my phone, I'd always see push notifications about her. Once, Mother Zhong saw it and shook her head, saying, "This child, how young she is, yet she's acting so ostentatious. The most important thing in medicine is to stay calm and grounded. Being so showy is not a good thing." Father Zhong also nodded. "A genius created by hype will eventually fall. Lucia, let's not follow this path. Being down to earth is far more valuable than anything else." I smiled and agreed. But a chill ran through my heart. In my previous life, Vivian's reputation as a divine doctor was also built up bit by bit through such means. Just having me, the mediocre true heiress, as a contrast in my previous life, made her seem even more outstanding. In this life, without me as a point of comparison, her halo seems even more glaring, but also more ephemeral. The Liang family probably thought this wasn't enough. Shortly after the start of sophomore year, Yunqing one high school held its anniversary celebration. As one of the main sponsors, the Liang family not only donated a large sum of money but also arranged a segment. Vivian would demonstrate a traditional Chinese medicine mastery by performing acupuncture therapy on a volunteering school leader to showcase the younger generation's inheritance of traditional medicine. The news spread like wildfire across the entire school. Admirers were thrilled, eagerly anticipating the goddess to showcase her skills. Doubters whispered among themselves, finding it absurd to let a high school student, even one hyped as a genius, perform acupuncture in such a formal setting. However, the Liang family held significant influence, and the school seemed more than willing to cooperate with this show. The grand auditorium was packed on the day of the school anniversary. Vivian wore a snow-white custom cheongsam, her hair styled into an elegant bun, as she gracefully walked onto the stage under a spotlight. Exuding a poised and confident smile, Vivian's parents sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Caspian was also in the audience, his gaze following her. The demonstration begins. A vice principal who claimed to have suffered from neck discomfort for years volunteered to take the stage. Under the scrutiny of the camera's close-up and the gaze of the entire audience, Vivian opened an exquisite rosewood needle case, retrieved a silver needle, sterilized it, and then, her hand trembled almost imperceptibly. Although she steadied it quickly, those of us standing close by, myself included, saw it clearly. A flicker of nervousness and uncertainty passed through her eyes. Steadying herself, she inserted a needle into a precise spot on the back of the vice principal's neck, a location she had rehearsed countless times. Her movements were not fluid, even a bit clumsy. The vice principal cooperatively made a face as if feeling a sore, aching sensation. Then came the second needle, the third needle. She was getting slower, and fine beads of sweat even appeared on her forehead. The venue was very quiet, with only the faint hum of the camera and her breathing. Just as she was about to insert the fourth needle, near a more dangerous acupoint, a small but clear voice suddenly came from the audience. "Half an inch away from Fengqi acupoint is Onmian acupoint, which can calm the mind with shallow insertion, but your angle is off by 3 minutes. And going deeper by half a millimeter could stimulate the greater occipital nerve." The voice was calm, not loud, yet it landed like a stone dropped into a still pond. Every gaze, including the cameras, instantly shifted from Vivian to the source of the voice, me. I sat there, a school anniversary program leaflet spread open before me, as if I had just casually offered a remark. My expression was placid, as though I were discussing the weather. Vivian's hand froze in midair, her face instantly draining of color. She whipped her head around to look at me, her eyes filled with shock, panic, and the humiliated fury of being publicly exposed. The room fell deathly silent. The vice principal was also stunned, his neck stiffening as he dared not move. Vivian's parents shot to their feet, their faces a picture of fury. Vivian's mother glared daggers at me, her eyes practically devouring me whole. Caspian stared at me in shock, his brow deeply furrowed. "What do you mean by that, young lady?" The host on stage was the first to recover. trying to smooth things over, but her tone was laced with displeasure and suspicion. Do not interrupt Vivian's presentation. I closed the program booklet, looked up, and let my gaze sweep calmly across the stage and the audience. Nothing much. I just saw some improper acupuncture technique and felt compelled to raise a point, out of concern for the vice principal's well-being. In traditional Chinese acupuncture, the slightest deviation can lead to a grave error. Since Vivian is hailed as a medical prodigy, she should be all the more meticulous, shouldn't she? My tone remained even, not confrontational, yet every word was crystal clear, resonating in the heart of everyone present. Improper acupuncture technique, concern for the vice principal's well-being. This statement carries a lot of weight. A buzz of discussion immediately erupted among the audience. Some were surprised, some were skeptical, and others wore amused expressions. Vivian's face alternated between red and pale. Her hand holding the needle trembled slightly, and she was caught in a dilemma. Keep going, she won't dare. What I just said completely shattered her confidence. Stop, this meticulously planned show would become a complete joke. Vivian's father shot a sharp, pressurized look toward the school administrators. One official hastily stood up, clearing his throat. Ahem, well, Vivian is still young, and the pressure of the moment got to her. A small slip-up is understandable. The sentiment was what mattered, and that came through perfectly. Let's, have the vice principal step down for arrest. The vice principal, as if granted a pardon, hurriedly and carefully removed the needles from his neck and made a quick exit from the stage. Vivian remained frozen on stage. The spotlight illuminated her pallid face, her previous image of grace and confidence utterly gone, replaced only by sheer embarrassment and humiliation. The host quickly announced the next segment, trying to move past this farce, but some things, once broken, can never be mended. After the school anniversary, rumors about Vivian nearly injuring someone due to an acupuncture mistake and her genius doctor persona possibly falling apart quietly spread across campus. Although the Liang family's influence quickly suppressed some obvious discussions, and related forum posts were deleted, private doubts grew like weeds. Vivian took a few days off and didn't come to school. I heard she had a huge tantrum at home. Caspian came to see me once, in a quiet stairwell of the school building after class. Lucia, what exactly are you trying to do? He blocked my way, his face dark. I don't understand what you mean, I said, holding my books and looking at him. You did it on purpose at the school festival, he stated with certainty, his voice tight with suppressed anger. You humiliated Vivian in front of everyone. I smiled, but the warmth didn't reach my eyes. Caspian, you're mistaken. First, I was just stating a fact for safety's sake. If that counts as humiliation, it only proves her skills are lacking. Second, if her medical skills were truly exceptional, why would she be threatened by a single comment from me? And third, what gives you the right to question me? Are you her bodyguard, or her spokesperson? Caspian was momentarily speechless, his expression darkening further. You have a grudge against her? Why? Just because she's more popular than you? Because she's more, compared to her in what way? Richer than me, more famous than me? I interrupted him, my tone turning cold. Caspian, you're overestimating her and underestimating me. I have no interest in her, nor do I harbor any hostility. I simply can't stand the fact that someone is treating serious medicine as a tool for sensationalism, and almost caused an accident. If that's what you call hostility, then I think indifference to truth and safety is the greatest malice. You, Caspian stared at me intently, as if trying to find even a trace of jealousy, hypocrisy, or malice on my face, but all he saw was a calm indifference, and deep in my eyes, a cold understanding that he couldn't comprehend. You seem to know a lot, he suddenly said, his voice lowering with a tone of inquiry. What I know is just common sense. I sidestepped him, ready to leave. Move aside. I'm going home. Lucia, he called out behind me, his voice a mix of emotions. You are very different from the rumors. I didn't turn back. Rumors are just rumors, just like Vivian's reputation as a miracle doctor. After saying that, I walked down the stairs directly. I know that the false peace between Vivian, or rather, the Liangs and Caspian, was completely shattered since the school anniversary, but I don't care. In my past life, what did my submission and compromise bring me? It was escalating humiliation and the ultimate despair of being sacrificed. In this life, I don't go looking for trouble, but I'm certainly not afraid of it when it comes. If anyone dares to target me, trying to force their twisted logic on others as truth, I won't hesitate to use facts to gently pop that colorful bubble. The school anniversary controversy gradually subsided, but its impact was profound. Although Vivian quickly returned to school and was still surrounded by her devotees, she was noticeably more low-key, no longer constantly bringing up her medical skills. Her live streams were also paused for a few days, and when she resumed, the content had shifted to flower arranging, tea ceremony, and playing the guzheng, still creating the image of a classical talented woman, but avoiding the most central and Easily exposed part, medical skills. It seems that Vivian's parents also realized something, reducing the hype around her publicly practicing medicine and instead starting to plan another path for her, entering academia. They spent a fortune hiring several renowned professors to tailor a few papers on Chinese medicine and dietary therapy for subhealth for Vivian, attaching her name to them, and preparing to submit them to some non-core journals, continuing to gild her reputation as a genius. Meanwhile, they also intensified their efforts to win over Caspian. The business partnership between the two families grew even tighter. Vivian's parents made it abundantly clear, both directly and through hints, that they hoped for a marriage alliance once the two children came of age. Uniting their strengths, Caspian remained non-committal on the matter, his stance ambiguous. He continued to be seen everywhere with Vivian, playing the part of her protector, yet, compared to before, there was now a subtle, almost imperceptible layer of distance and scrutiny in his demeanor, especially after the school anniversary incident. A flicker of doubt would occasionally cross his eyes when he looked at Vivian, and I, completely lost in my own world. The workload in my sophomore year became even more intense. I demonstrated remarkable talent in math, physics, and chemistry, winning awards in national competitions and being selected for the school's elite student training program. My goal was clear: a top university, preferably one that offered a full scholarship, to ease the financial burden on my parents and pave the strongest path for my future. My parents were proud of me, but they never put any pressure on me. Home will always be my warmest, safest harbor. I thought my world and the Liang families would remain parallel lines, never to intersect again after graduation when we all went our separate ways. But I underestimated the inertia of fate, and I underestimated the Liang families' relentless, self-important ambition. After a provincial physics competition awards ceremony, I, as the gold medalist, gave a brief interview to the city television station. The interview mainly focused on study methods and insights. Quite routine. The program aired for only a few minutes, but it was those few minutes that Vivian's mother happened to catch on TV. I was wearing a simple school uniform, barefaced, but with bright eyes, a confident smile, and clear, articulate speech, exuding poise and grace. The host praised me as a model of the children of humble origins and the pride of Yunqing No. 1 high school. Vivian's mother stared at the TV screen, her teacup motionless in her hand for a long time. Lao Liang, she suddenly spoke, her voice a bit hoarse. Look at this child, doesn't he resemble? Vivian's father was reading the newspaper, and upon hearing this, he looked up at the TV on screen. I was answering the host's questions with a calm and composed demeanor. Vivian's father furrowed his brow, his expression darkening. Of course he recognized me, the girl they had abandoned without a second thought at the orphanage gates. Over the years, they had certainly heard my name, top of the class, competition champion, yet they chose to ignore it, consoling themselves with notions like she just studies all the time or she's a bookworm, unwilling to admit that the jinx they had cast aside could shine so brilliantly. What is she like? Just a bookworm who can ace exams, Vivian's father said stiffly, his eyes never leaving the TV. But Vivian's mother set down her teacup, her tone complex. Look at her manner of speaking, that composure. And do you remember, when she was little in the orphanage, the way she looked at us? I always felt there's something extraordinary about this girl, and now with her excellent grades and good reputation, what if what? Vivian's father interrupted impatiently. Don't forget why we didn't keep her in the first place. Vivian is our lucky star, the future of the Liang family. This Lucia, no matter how good she is someone else's child, not ours. Stop overthinking. Vivian's mother fell silent after being shouted at by her husband, but her gaze remained fixed on the TV, filled with regret, resentment, and a barely concealed calculation. Just a few days later, a rather notorious gossip tabloid in Yunqing suddenly published an article with a sensational headline, "The Scholarship Kid and the Heiress, Same High School, Worlds Apart." The report conducted a so-called comprehensive comparison between Vivian and me, using a tone that appeared objective but was in fact heavily loaded and suggestive. It compared everything from family background and daily attire to social circles and talent displays, ultimately concluding that while Lucia, that's me, is an academic star, in an era that values well-rounded skills and connections, her future relies solely on her own grit and has a limited ceiling. Vivian, on the other hand, comes from immense privilege, is brilliantly talented, has been groomed and is highly anticipated by her family. Her future is boundless, a true golden child. The article also insinuated, in a not-so-subtle way, that someone like me, a small-town grind who only knows how to bury my head in books, lacks vision and sophistication, making it difficult to ever fit into high society. The entire report exudes an air of condescending arrogance and disdain for the less fortunate. The report immediately caused a huge uproar on campus. My supporters were outraged, seeing it as a humiliation to hard work. Vivian's fans, on the other hand, found justification in their argument, loudly proclaiming that being born is a skill and resources are more important than effort. Lucia, don't pay any attention to that. My desk mate slammed the magazine onto the table, fuming. What kind of garbage is this? It's clearly putting you down to prop up that Vivian. I bet the Leon family is behind this. I picked up the magazine, skimmed a few lines, and everything became perfectly clear of this style, this targeted attack. Who else could it be but the Leons? Probably Vivian's mother saw the interview and couldn't handle it, or maybe her father thought my nerd reputation wasn't tarnished enough and needed to give it another kick to highlight their precious daughter's perfection. Honestly, you haven't improved one bit. You used public opinion to pressure me in my last life, and in this one, you're still pulling the same old trick. It's fine, I said, tossing the magazine back onto my deskmate's desk, my tone calm. If a dog bites you, you don't bite it back. If they're so keen on competing, let them have at it. But they're being such bullies. My deskmate protested on my behalf. I smiled but said nothing. Bullying maybe, but this petty media attack pales in comparison to the suffering they inflicted on me in my previous life. But the tree may crave calm, yet the wind will not subside. One afternoon a few days later, I was summoned to the homeroom teacher's office. In the office, to my surprise, Vivian's mother was also sitting there. Vivian's mother was dressed elegantly today, with a polite smile on her face. However, her gaze held a scrutinizing and unsettling, almost appraising, glint. So, you must be Lucia. Don't be nervous. Have a seat. Vivian's mother began, her tone gentle yet laced with a patronizing air of condescension. I'm here today in my capacity as vice chair of the school's parent committee to show some concern for the development of our outstanding students. The homeroom teacher stood by with an awkward, ingratiating smile. I scoffed inwardly, but kept my expression neutral as I quietly took my seat. I've learned a bit about your situation, Vivian's mother continued, elegantly crossing her legs. Coming from an ordinary teacher's family, it's quite remarkable they've raised such an accomplished young woman. Our Leon group has always valued education and is more than willing to sponsor promising students from humble backgrounds. She paused, observing my reaction. Seeing no particular expression on my face, she continued, I greatly admire your tenacity and achievements. Therefore, I'd like to personally sponsor your university tuition and living expenses. Furthermore, I can introduce you to some distinguished mentors to pave the way for your future development. Of course, this isn't without conditions. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice with a persuasive tone. All you need to do is publicly express your admiration for our Vivian, state that you look up to her as a role model, and support her in public forums. You know, Vivian is young and sometimes easily misunderstood. She needs the support of friends, your classmates, and among the best of your peers. If you could become friends, supporting each other, it would make for a wonderful story and greatly benefit your own reputation. What do you think? The true intention was finally revealed. Was it really about bribing me with money and resources to serve as Vivian's foil and cleanup tool? Did they also expect me to publicly admire her and hold her up as a role model? As I looked at Vivian's mother's well-maintained, shrewdly calculating face, I suddenly felt a wave of nausea. In my past life, she only showed disdain and indifference towards me. Now, seeing my value as a tool, she's adopted a patronizing, quid pro quo demeanor. Mrs. Leung, I began slowly, my voice clear and calm. Thank you for your kindness, but it's not necessary. The smile on Vivian's mother's face froze. What did you say? I said. It's not necessary. I repeated, my tone firm. I can cover my tuition and living expenses myself, through scholarships and hard work. My future doesn't need to be paved by currying favor with or flattering anyone. As for Vivian, I looked up, meeting Vivian's mother's increasingly displeased gaze. She is her own person, and I am mine. Whether I admire someone depends solely on their character and true merit, nothing else. I'm sorry to disappoint you. After speaking, I stood up and gave the homeroom teacher a slight nod. Teacher, if there's nothing else, I'll head back to class. The homeroom teacher nodded quickly. Vivian's mother sat there, her face alternating between green and white, as the carefully maintained mask of elegance nearly shattered. She probably never dreamed that a penniless, powerless orphan would dare to refuse her so decisively and subtly mock her daughter's capabilities. Lucia, Vivian's mother's voice rang out behind me, filled with suppressed anger and undisguised threat. Young people, don't be too ungrateful. In this society, being book-smart is useless. Without connections, without backing, how far do you think you can go? Don't regret it. I paused with my hand on the doorknob, didn't turn back, and simply replied indifferently, Madame Liang, how far I can go is none of your concern. As for regret, I gently pushed the door open, stepped out, and left Vivian's mother's furious figure and unfinished threats Behind me, my life has always been in my own hands. Chapter 4. Vivian's mother's recruitment plan hit a snag, and the Leon family seemed to quiet down for a while. However, the ripple effects of that comparative report still lingered, and the campus gossip about Vivian and me hadn't completely subsided. The open rivalry had simply shifted to more subtle forms of alignment and undercurrents. I had no mind for any of that. The final year of high school had begun in earnest, with the college entrance exam looming. This was the most crucial battle to change my destiny, and failure was not an option. I poured all my energy into the final sprint of review, with single-minded focus. Mr. and Mrs. Zhong gave me their utmost support and helped relieve my stress. The meals at home became more nutritious. Every evening, Mrs. Zhong would warm a glass of milk and place it by my desk, gently reminding me to get some rest. Though Mr. Zhong wasn't a man of many words, he would quietly check all the electrical wiring in the house to ensure my studies wouldn't be interrupted. Their love was quiet yet steadfast, providing the warmest motivation on my path forward. In comparison, Vivian's senior year was anything but dull, perhaps to restore her somewhat tarnished image after the school anniversary incident, or perhaps spurred by the competitive spirit ignited by that comparative report. Vivian made even more noise after the start of her senior year. She no longer settled for just live streaming flower arrangement and tea ceremonies online. Instead, she launched break-time free clinics at school, under the guise of needing relaxation due to academic stress. While giving back to society, she found an unused small room on the first floor of the school's art building, decorated it a bit, added a few potted plants, and hung a sign that read Vivian's Compassionate Clinic Corner. Every noon and after school, she sat inside, ostensibly offering free health consultations to her classmates. At first, out of curiosity or admiration, quite a few students actually went to consult her. Headaches, colds, insomnia, nightmares, irregular periods, all kinds of issues. Vivian would wear her hanfu or cheongsam, put on an air of mystery, ask a few questions, and then prescribe remedies like drink more hot water, go to bed early and rise early, soak some goji berries and chrysanthemum, or give out beautifully packaged calming sachets and cooling tea bags produced by the Leon family's pharmacy. These items were inexpensive, but with the label hand-prepared by Vivian and her miracle doctor aura, they became quite popular, with even people lining up to get them. Vivian's vanity was thoroughly gratified. Every day, she would post photos of her free clinic sessions and patients' thank you notes on her social media, captioning them with feel-good quotes like "The fragrance always remains in the hand that gives the rose, and it's my honor to do my small part for my fellow students." This netted her another wave of glowing praise. Vivian's parents were delighted with this turn of events. They saw it as a sign of their daughter's compassion, down-to-earth nature, and practical application of medical skills. Not only did they provide material support, but they also leveraged their connections to get a few local small-time media outlets to cover the story, hailing Vivian's free clinic as a model for how the new generation gives back to society. Caspian didn't approve from the start. He felt their final year of high school was precious time that should be focused on academics. He saw this kind of showboating as pointless and fraught with potential for things to go wrong. But Vivian wouldn't listen, and her parents backed her up. With his failed to persuade, he had no choice but to tag along during her clinic hours whenever he could, under the guise of keeping order. He was really just there out of worry, ready to clean up any mess that might occur. Occasionally passing by the art building, I could see the long line at the entrance of the free clinic corner and the sweet smiling Vivian, surrounded by people inside. Caspian usually stood not far from the door, leaning against the wall, looking down at his phone, with a somewhat detached and tired expression. Once, as I carried a stack of homework to the teacher's office, I happened to run into the end of the free clinic, with Vivian being escorted out by a few girls, her face flushed with satisfaction. "Vivian, you're amazing. You said I had too much liver fire, and after drinking your chrysanthemum tea, I really feel much better." "Absolutely. That sachet smells divine. I hung it by my bed, and my sleep has improved so much," Vivian replied with a smile, her gaze shifting until she spotted me not far away. Her smile faded slightly. She lifted her chin and deliberately raised her voice. "It's really nothing special. Traditional Chinese medicine emphasizes faith and sincerity. For some people, if their intentions are impure and their energy is incompatible, even the best prescription won't work." The few girls around her followed her gaze to look at me, their expressions a mix of mockery and anticipation for a spectacle. I couldn't be bothered with such a childish provocation and kept walking. Lucia, Vivian, however, wouldn't let it go. She called out to me and asked with feigned concern, "You look a bit pale. Have you been studying too hard? Maybe your qi and blood are deficient. Would you like me to take your pulse and prescribe something to help regulate your system? Don't be shy, we're classmates." The girls around her let out low, mocking giggles. I stopped, turned around, and looked at her calmly. "Thank you, but no, my pallor is likely from staying up late doing practice problems last night, or perhaps it's just my natural complexion. But you, Vivian," my gaze settled on her face, "your cheeks are flushed. Especially in the afternoons, while I can't see your tongue. Coding, your voice sounds slightly weak and ungrounded, even with makeup. A closer look reveals faint puffiness under your eyes. Offering free medical advice is a noble cause, but it's draining. You should pay more attention to your own rest, worry less, and avoid overexerting your mind. Otherwise, you risk quietly depleting your heart's vitality, which would run quite contrary to the way of wellness you're so keen on promoting. Another string of half-literary, quasi-professional diagnoses. Vivian's fake smile froze instantly, and the giggles from the surrounding girls stopped abruptly. What are you talking nonsense about again? Vivian's face turned even redder with anger, this time not feigned. Whether it's nonsense or not, you know best, I said calmly, then turned away without looking at her, carrying my homework and leaving. Even after walking a long way, I could still hear Vivian behind me, fuming to her companion. What does she know? She's just a bookworm, she's just... Jealous of me, I shook my head. Jealous? No, I was just stating the facts. Lately, Vivian has been staying up late to keep up with her free clinic and social life. She's running on nervous energy, and her complexion is actually quite poor, though she hides it under a thick layer of makeup. Anyone with even a passing knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine could spot the symptoms I mentioned. Deep down, she's probably worried about it herself. That minor controversy was like a pebble tossed into a lake. It caused a brief ripple before sinking into silence. Vivian's free clinic continues to thrive, and if anything, the surrounding controversy has only made it more popular. Something happened just before the end of the first semester of senior year. That afternoon, after the last monthly exam of senior year, the students were feeling a bit relaxed. Vivian's free clinic corner was open as usual, with a few people waiting outside. A young girl from the first year of high school, suffering from insomnia and palpitations due to exam stress, came to see Vivian at the urging of her classmates. As usual, Vivian asked about the symptoms, examined the tongue coating, and then diagnosed the condition as disharmony between the heart and kidneys with flaring of deficient fire. She prescribed a formula for a calming tea, which contained several common sedative herbs. However, one ingredient was cinnabar, mercuric sulfide, and she casually mentioned a dosage figure, instructing the girl to have it prepared at the pharmacy. The girl, unaware of the danger, took the prescription and left, profusely thanking her. A few days later, one morning during self-study, the girl suddenly collapsed, foaming at the mouth and convulsing, rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. She was diagnosed with heavy metal poisoning, which had triggered acute kidney injury. A situation that nearly ended in disaster. The girl's parents stormed the school, wailing and demanding an explanation. The situation escalated quickly. The free clinic corner was urgently shut down and sealed by the school. Upon hearing the news, Vivian's parents rushed to the school, calming the parents while using their connections to suppress the media, and shifting all the blame to students being naive, well-intentioned but causing trouble, and the pharmacy dispensing the wrong medication. Vivian was kept at home by her parents, who claimed she was traumatized and needed rest, refusing all inquiries. The school faced immense pressure and, under the influence of the Liang family, issued a severe warning to Vivian, citing that Vivian acted with good intentions but lacked clinical experience, leading to an imprecise medication suggestion. The involved student did not seek treatment at a formal medical institution and was also responsible for self-prescribing. The school imposed a severe warning on Vivian, ordered her to write a formal apology, and bear all the girl's medical expenses. Meanwhile, the school strictly prohibited any student from conducting so-called medical consultations without permission. The punishment seemed severe, but under the Liang family's influence, it was not made public and was only internally communicated. It was a heavy blow to Vivian's miracle doctor persona, but it didn't completely collapse. Her core fans still believe she was framed and misunderstood. That incompetent doctors brought down the true healer. The Liang family quickly launched a PR campaign, putting out numerous press releases about geniuses needing room to grow and setbacks being valuable lessons, in an attempt to salvage her image. But some things had fundamentally changed, at least within the school. The previous atmosphere of blind worship towards Vivian's miracle doctor persona has significantly faded. Many students who were initially skeptical have now been completely disillusioned by this incident. Their private conversations are now laced with a good deal of mockery, and we thought she was so amazing, she nearly got someone killed. You can't just use cinnabar recklessly, that's basic common sense. Even a so-called miracle doctor should know that, right? It's only because his family has money that he could smooth things over. Anyone else would have been in real trouble. I won't be so quick to believe in these things again. If you're sick, you really should go to the hospital. Caspian's attitude throughout this incident was rather ambiguous. He was involved in handling the matter from start to finish, running around and doing everything, but his expression remained grim the entire time, especially when he saw the words mercury poisoning and acute kidney injury on the hospital's diagnosis report. His eyes grew dark and terrifying. It is said that after things calmed down slightly, he and Vivian had the most intense argument since they met. I told you not to mess with this. You're not a real doctor, you don't have a medical license, you barely understand the properties, dosages, and contraindications of those herbs. Something big was bound to happen. Caspian's voice was filled with suppressed anger. How was I supposed to know this would happen? I just wanted to help her. That prescription, I found it in an ancient book. Who knew the pharmacy got the herbs wrong? And Caspian, you didn't object at the time either. Now that something's gone wrong. It's all my fault, Vivian cried, her face streaked with tears, full of grievance. Didn't I object? How many times have I warned you? Do you see me looking supportive every time I stand outside your so-called free clinic corner? Ancient books. Which ancient book would teach you to prescribe cinnabar for someone with palpitations and insomnia? And in that dosage, Vivian, honestly, do you really understand medicine? Or are you just reciting lines? Caspian's words were like a knife, piercing through the thin veil of pretense. Vivian's sobs abruptly stopped, her face drained of color, and she stared at him in shock. Caspian, brother, what do you mean? You don't believe me, even you don't believe me. Caspian looked at her pale face, her red, tear-filled eyes, and the expression of grievance on her face, and the pent-up frustration in his chest grew even more intense. He recalled Lucia's calm reminder during the school celebration, her seemingly casual but incisive diagnoses on multiple occasions, and then looked at Vivian, who had nearly caused a disaster but still felt innocent and wronged. A profound sense of absurdity and helplessness seized him. Without another word, he turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him, and Vivian was left alone in the room, smashing everything within reach in a fit of rage. The cinnabar incident descended like a sudden cold snap, casting a clear crack in the carefully cultivated miracle healer aura Vivian had maintained, despite the Liang family's desperate efforts to patch things up, using money and PR to minimize the fallout. Trust is a fragile thing. Once shattered, it's incredibly difficult to rebuild. Vivian has grown noticeably quieter. She's stopped her high-profile free clinics, and her social media accounts have gone silent for a while. However, the pride and vanity she'd grown accustomed to from being constantly fawned over never truly vanished. It merely went underground, morphing into deep-seated resentment towards the instigator, that high school freshman, and everyone who dared question her. And of course, in her mind, she's probably added me to her list, the one who kept pulling the rug out from under her. But I had no time to dwell on her inner turmoil. The final semester of senior year had begun, and the charge toward the finish line was on. The numbers on the countdown board next to the blackboard dwindled day by day, and the air was thick with tension and anxiety. The classroom was silent except for the scratch of pens on paper and the rustle of turning pages. My goal is clear and firm. The top university, the best major. This is not just to realize my own value, but also to make Mr. and Mrs. Zhong proud, to allow them to stand tall in front of relatives and friends, and to reward their half-lifetime of poverty and sacrifice in the best way possible. It seems Vivian has also learned from her mistakes and, under the arrangement of her parents, has begun to focus on her studies. The Liang family hired the best tutoring team for her, providing one-on-one coaching, with the goal of a top university, though the specific major is yet to be determined, likely depending on where she can get in and then using connections to maneuver. After all, with the prestige of being a genius doctor and the Liang family's wealth paving the way, many things became much easier. Caspian still came and went with her, but the atmosphere between them had noticeably cooled. Caspian spoke even less, often. While Vivian chattered beside him, he would only respond with a faint his gaze often distant, lost in thought. A few times, I ran into him in the library or on campus. The look he gave me was more complicated, as if he wanted to say something but held back. I never acknowledged it. We were like two rivers that briefly converged before flowing apart, each charting its own course toward an unknown end. In the final citywide mock exam, I held the top spot with a commanding lead, leaving a significant gap in the scores. As for Vivian, with the full support of her tutoring team, she managed to squeeze into the top 50 of our grade. However, for someone who had cultivated a genius persona, this result was far from impressive. Her science scores, in particular, were a disaster. The Liang family once again leveraged their connections to package her competition awards and social activities, aiming to gain extra points in independent enrollment and comprehensive evaluations. A few days before the college entrance exam, the school gave students a break to review on their own. I locked myself in my room, doing a final check for any gaps in my preparation. Zhong's mother cooked delicious meals in various styles for me, while Zhong's father ensured absolute silence, even tiptoeing while walking. The day of the college entrance exam, the weather was clear. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Zhong, accompanied me to the entrance of the exam venue. They didn't give me too many instructions, just firmly squeezed my hand, their eyes full of trust and encouragement. Lucia Relax and do your best. No matter the outcome, you'll always be our pride, my mother said, adjusting my collar. Stay calm, my father said succinctly. I nodded, took a deep breath, and turned to enter the exam room. My mind was strangely calm for this moment. I had given 2 lifetimes of effort and waiting. In the exam room, I saw Vivian. She sat by the window, her face slightly pale, her fingers unconsciously twisting together, looking a bit nervous. Vivian's parents and Caspian came to see her. Crowding outside the exam hall, constantly peering inside, with Vivian's mother even clasping her hands and murmuring prayers. The bell rang, and the exam papers were distributed. The world fell silent, leaving only the sound of pen scratching paper and my steady heartbeat. The 2 days of exams went surprisingly smoothly. As the final bell rang, I put down my pen and looked at the densely written exam paper, feeling a profound sense of clarity. It's over, no matter the outcome. I gave it my all, and have no regrets. Stepping out of the exam hall, the sunlight was a bit too bright. Outside the school gates was a crowd of eagerly waiting parents, bustling and full of energy. I spotted Zhong's parents immediately. They stood in the crowd, not particularly conspicuous, but their eyes were locked on me, their faces lit with relieved smiles. I hurried over, and Mrs. Zhong pulled me into a hug, her voice choked with emotion. It's over, that's all that matters. It's finally over, Father Zhong also rarely broke into a big smile, patting my shoulder. Let's go home. Your mom made your favorite sweet and sour pork ribs. Our family of 3 walked out with the crowd, the atmosphere warm and cozy. Vivian's mother's sharp and excited voice rang out nearby. Vivian, over here. How did the exam go? Were the questions difficult? How did you perform? I had a top tutor estimate the questions. Did they get any right? I glanced over and saw Vivian surrounded by her parents and Caspian, her mother, was bombarding her with questions, while her father, though silent, had an anxious look in his eyes. Vivian had a smile on her face, but her eyes seemed distant, and she answered vaguely, "It's okay, I guess." Just like that, Caspian stood slightly to the side, his expression calm, showing no signs of joy or anger, yet his gaze seemed to casually drift over the noisy crowd and land on us, on my side profile as I was surrounded by Mr. and Mrs. Zhong, chatting and laughing easily. His gaze was murky and unclear, as if veiled by a thick fog. I averted my eyes, took Mrs. Zhong's arm, and left the noise behind. My battle is over. Their joys and sorrows are no concern of mine. The days spent waiting for the results felt both endless and fleeting. I declined all invitations from my classmates. Instead, I stayed home with Mr. and Mrs. Zhong, reading, doing chores, and occasionally trying out new recipes in the kitchen. The days were simple and pleasant. Mr. and Mrs. Zhong made no mention of the exams, simply savoring this rare leisurely time after their daughter had finished. The Liang household, however, was a hive of activity. After Vivian's exams, the Liangs immediately arranged a series of relaxation activities for her: luxury travel, exclusive brand launches, high society galas. Her social media feeds were flooded with photos, showcasing the same glamorous, center of attention heiress persona. It seemed they were using this approach to dispel the shadow of the Vermilion incident and to lay the groundwork for the next phase of their publicity campaign. Finally, the day of the results announcement arrived. In the early hours of that day, the scoring system opened. I sat in front of the computer, with Mr. and Mrs. Zhong standing on either side behind me, their breathing barely audible. Enter the admission ticket number, password, and clicked a query. The screen flashed, and the score popped up. The room fell silent for a few seconds. Then, Mrs. Zhong clapped a hand over her mouth, letting out a choked sob of pure joy. Mr. Zhong grabbed my shoulder, his hand trembling slightly, his eyes instantly rimmed with red. I stared at the impossibly high total score on the screen, and the clear provincial ranking next to it. 1, the top scorer in the province for science. My anxious heart finally settled, landing firmly on solid ground. There was no wild elation, only a profound sense of fulfillment. A feeling that things had fallen into place just as they were meant to. At almost the exact same moment, my phone started buzzing like crazy. Calls from my homeroom teacher, the principal, congratulations from relatives and friends, followed by a flood of calls from the media, provincial TV, city TV, major newspapers. They all wanted an interview with the newly crowned top science student. The Zhong family's small living room was instantly engulfed in overwhelming joy and commotion. Over at the Liang household, however, the scene was completely different. Vivian's test scores are in. It's a perfectly respectable score for an average student, but it falls well short of the mark for top-tier universities, let alone living up to the prodigy image she's been cultivating. Vivian's parents pulled every string they could think of and consulted countless experts, but the feedback was nearly unanimous. With this score, getting into the competitive programs at their initial target elite universities is pretty much a lost cause, unless she has some truly exceptional awards or background, or secures a A special admission slot through a massive donation. Vivian's parents were beside themselves with anxiety. On one hand, they poured money into hiring a more powerful operation team, while on the other hand, they tried to argue for special admission based on traditional Chinese medicine expertise and social influence. But the results were minimal. When Vivian found out her scores and ranking, she threw a huge tantrum, smashing things, crying and yelling, blaming her parents for not hiring the best tutor for her, blaming the exam questions for being too obscure, and blaming her poor condition. Amid the chaos, my interview aired on TV. In the footage, I was wearing a simple white shirt, my hair tied back, barefaced, sitting in the clean but modest living room of the Zhong family, smiling gently and looking at the camera with clear, determined eyes. I expressed my gratitude to the school for its nurturing, to the teachers for their guidance, and especially to my parents. I owe my achievements today primarily to my mom and dad. They gave me a loving home, taught me integrity, kindness, and hard work. They never pressured me, they only told me to do my best and be happy. They are my strongest support and my greatest motivation to move forward. The camera pans to Zhong's parents beside them. Zhong's mother smiles shyly, her eyes glistening with tears. Mr. Zhong straightened his back, the wrinkles on his face smoothing out with irrepressible pride. My parents are both ordinary middle school teachers. They were not wealthy, but they gave me the best education and the most abundant love. I want to tell them, and all my classmates like me, that your family background doesn't determine everything. Hard work and perseverance can change your destiny. The interview was brief, but profoundly moving. After the program aired, it generated an enormous response. Top scorer from a humble background, grateful to parents, unyielding self-improvement. These keywords quickly trended on local social media. My story was widely shared, garnering countless blessings and admiration, and this interview landed like a resounding slap across the face of every member of the Liang family, especially Vivian's mother, watching the poised, articulate girl on TV, radiating confidence despite her modest surroundings, then looking at her own so-called genius daughter at home, who threw tantrums over a disappointing grade and whose only skills seemed to be dressing up and spending money. A surge of bitter rage, mixed with inexpressible regret and envy, shot straight to her head. Smack, she viciously turned off the TV, her chest heaving. Look at her, just look at her, Vivian's mother shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at the darkened screen before whirling back to her daughter, who was sobbing on the couch. She's a girl, just like you. How can she be so sensible, so driven, a top scholar? And she appreciates her parents. And you, what can you do besides spend our money, cause trouble, and humiliate us? A miracle doctor, more like a fraud. Mom, Vivian cried out, lifting her tear-streaked face in disbelief. How can you say that to me? It's your fault for being useless and not getting me into a good university, and now you're blaming me. What's so great about that Lucia? She's just a poor teacher's daughter, a bookworm, a country bumpkin. You shut your mouth, Vivian's father roared, slamming his palm down on the coffee table. If you hadn't been wasting your time on all that nonsense instead of studying, your grades wouldn't be this terrible, and you even got mixed up in that Vermilion scandal. You've completely disgraced us. The three of them descended into a furious shouting match. Caspian sat in the armchair beside him, coldly observing the spectacle, his face expressionless, only deep within his eyes. A heavy sense of disappointment and weariness churned. He remembered the girl with the cold, lifeless eyes at the orphanage gate, the calm reminder she gave during the school celebration, the seemingly casual yet precise diagnoses she had made time and again, her resolute refusal when faced with Vivian's mother's temptation, and the composed, confident, and grateful image of her on TV. And then there was the current Vivian, hysterical, shifting blame, and utterly worthless except for her fortunate birth. A profound sense of absurdity and disillusionment nearly overwhelmed him. What had he believed in, fought for, and hoped for over the past decade? Amid the quarrel, Vivian's mother suddenly went into a trance, staring fixedly at the blacked-out TV screen, muttering to herself, the top scholar, she's the top scholar, she's my daughter, my real daughter. Though spoken softly, these words struck like a thunderbolt in the noisy living room. Vivian's father's angry curses caught in his throat, Vivian's sobs cut off abruptly, and even Caspian jerked his head up, shocked, to look at Vivian's mother. Vivian's mother seemed oblivious to what she had just said, her eyes still glued to the screen with a feverish, chaotic intensity. Yes, she's the one, she carries the Liang family blood, she's so outstanding, she's done us so proud. Back then, we never should have. What nonsense are you spouting? Vivian's father cut her off sharply, his face ashen with fury. Have you lost your mind? Vivian is our daughter, that Lucia has nothing to do with us. Have you forgotten what happened at the orphanage? Jolted by her husband's shout, Vivian's mother seemed to regain some clarity, but the resentment and regret in her eyes only deepened. She looked from her husband to Vivian, who stood there stunned and pale, her lips trembling. She said nothing more, but her expression spoke volumes. Laying her heart bare, Vivian felt as if struck by lightning. Trembling from head to toe, she stared at her parents in utter disbelief and shrieked, "Dad, Mom, what are you saying? What real daughter? What orphanage? I am your daughter. I am Vivian. What is that, Lucia? How dare she?" Caspian slowly stood up, watching the absurd and ugly scene before him. Feeling a wave of nausea, he said nothing and turned to stride out of the suffocatingly luxurious cage that was the Leon family home. In the living room, only Vivian's father's angry shouts, Vivian's mother's sobs, and Vivian's screaming and questioning remained. A family storm sparked by the college entrance exam scores had finally exposed the festering wounds hidden for years. Unaware of the storm brewing around me, I was immersed in the joy of spending time with Mr. and Mrs. Zhong, eagerly awaiting the start of a new future. The gears of fate, in a hidden corner unknown to anyone, slowly meshed together once more, emitting a heavy and ominous sound. Chapter 5. The summer after the college entrance exam should have been long and carefree, but my vacation was filled with various interviews, invitations, and calls from university admission officers. The halo of being the provincial top scorer brought significant attention. I carefully selected interviews with a few reputable media outlets, focusing on study methods, mindset adjustment, and gratitude towards parents, while avoiding any personal family background details and steering clear of potentially controversial topics. My low-key and appropriate behavior earned me even more goodwill. In the end, I chose to enroll in the 8-year combined bachelor's and doctoral program at the medical school of a top-tier domestic university. When the news got out, it was met with another wave of acclaim. Headlines like "Top Scorer from Humble Background Vows to Study Medicine" and "A Compassionate Heart and Skill Promise a Bright Future" began appearing in the newspapers. Mr. and Mrs. Zhong were overjoyed. Mrs. Zhong prepared a lavish feast and invited both sets of grandparents over. Their small home was filled with laughter and joy, although I was only their adopted daughter. They treated me even better than their own. This honor was the best reward for their lifelong dedication to teaching, nurturing others, and being kind. Despite living in poverty, the Leon family, on the other hand, was completely mired in chaos and decline. Vivian's scores, after much manipulation, barely reached the admission threshold for a niche program at a top university, completely unrelated to medicine. The Leon family publicly claimed it was respecting the child's interests and promoting diverse development, but those in the know understood what was really going on. Her genius doctor persona is already on shaky ground under the magnifying glass of the college entrance exam results, with only the most die-hard fans blindly defending her. What's worse is the atmosphere at home. Ever since Vivian's mother's slip of the tongue exposed the truth about her being the biological daughter, the peace at home has been completely shattered. Vivian has become extremely sensitive, irritable, and suspicious. She frantically pressed for answers about her origins. Vivian's parents initially tried to cover up and placate her, but under the strain of her hysterical sobbing and the threat, "If you don't tell me, I'll go confront Lucia myself," they reluctantly stammered out a partial truth. They admitted they had once given birth to a daughter who was, for certain reasons, lost to an orphanage, and that they later adopted Vivian. As for whether that lost daughter was Lucia, they were evasive. But Vivian was no fool, putting together her mother's earlier lapse in composure and all the subtle clues, she instantly became convinced that Lucia was the true heiress. This realization nearly shattered Vivian. She had always seen herself as the Leon family's one and only precious daughter, basking in her parents' undivided affection and all their resources, and now they were telling her she might just be a replacement. So Lucia, the one who always outshone her, the source of her bitter envy and helpless frustration, was the real Leon family heiress. All along, jealousy, fear, resentment, and hatred, a whirlwind of emotions tore at her. She began to squander money more recklessly than ever, shopping compulsively and frequenting all sorts of decadent venues, trying to fill the void and panic inside her with material things and noise. Towards Vivian's parents, she lost all her former affection and obedience. She became sarcastic and biting, constantly accusing them of deceiving her all these years and claiming they never truly loved her, only their biological daughter. Vivian's parents were at their wits' end. On one hand, they still had to toil for Vivian's future prospects, greasing the wheels at school, maintaining her basic socialite image, and dealing with the endless stream of minor troubles she kept stirring up. On the other hand, watching me shine ever brighter, with the media filled with nothing but glowing reports about me, the regret and resentment in their hearts grew like a noxious weed. Vivian's mother brought me up more and more often. Sometimes it was praise, "Look how well she's turned out." Sometimes it was regretful sighs, "If only we had," and sometimes it was pure, unadulterated envy. How could a poor teacher raise such a perfect daughter? Though Vivian's father scolded her, the hesitation and calculation in his eyes were becoming harder and harder to conceal. Caspian's relationship with the Leon family had also plummeted to an all-time low. After that argument, He rarely visited the Liang household anymore. Vivian sought him out a few times, either to sob about her grievances, to demand he use the Chu family's connections to fix something for her, or to question whether he had certain feelings for Lucia. Caspian grew increasingly weary and distant. He devoted more and more of his time to investigation and observation. He called in some favors to access the old orphanage records and, through various channels, quietly kept tabs on my every move, every interview I gave, my college entrance exam choices, everything about me. It seemed he was trying to piece together a complete picture of a Lucia utterly different from the one he thought he knew. On the eve of my university move-in day, Mr. and Mrs. Jones saw me off at the airport. Mrs. Jones' eyes were red as she repeatedly reminded me to take care of my health and eat my meals on time. Mr. Jones gave my shoulder a firm pat and said, "Lucia, once you're at school, study hard, but don't push yourself too much. Don't worry about things back home. Your mom and I will always be here for you." I promised them everything, hugged them tightly, then turned and walked through the security checkpoint without looking back. I was afraid that if I looked back and saw their tears, I wouldn't be able to hold back my own. A new city, a new school, a fresh start. I poured all my energy into my studies. The medical curriculum was heavy and dry, but I relished every bit of it. Anatomy, pharmacology, pathology. Each course fills me with fulfillment. I know this is the path I should truly follow, arming myself with knowledge and skills to become a true healer who can save lives, not like Vivian, that so-called miracle doctor who seeks fame and glory. College life is peaceful and fulfilling. I maintain excellent grades, join clubs that interest me, and occasionally video call with my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Joan. The troubles in Cloud City seem far away from me now, until the second semester of my freshman year. An explosive piece of news suddenly swept across the internet, pulling me back into the vortex I didn't want to face. Chapter 6. The news was about Vivian, but this time, it wasn't the usual entertainment gossip, but a bloody headline in the society section. Shocking headline: Miracle teen doctor kills patient, heiress Vivian Liang implicated in major medical malpractice scandal. Reports allege that Vivian, while in her university city, privately treated a retired senior official suffering from a severe heart condition. This official was an old comrade in arms of Caspian's grandmother, plagued by chronic illness and having lost faith in modern medicine. He had somehow heard rumors of Vivian being a prodigy doctor from a long line of medical experts. Through his connection with Caspian's grandmother, he eventually sought out Vivian, imploring her to treat him with her family's secret remedies. Vivian initially refused. She knew her own limitations, but Caspian's grandmother personally intervened, emphasizing that Vivian was raised under her watchful eye, and her medical skills are a true legacy of the Liang family. There's no harm in trying. Additionally, Vivian's parents, for reasons unknown, perhaps hoping to reverse their decline, perhaps swayed by Caspian's grandmother, or perhaps clinging to the last shred of hope for Vivian's once tarnished divine healer image, even encouraged Vivian to give it a try and gain experience. Caspian firmly opposed the idea, even getting into a heated argument with his family, bluntly stating that Vivian had no understanding of medicine and that this was a joke with people's lives. However, Caspian's grandmother remained stubborn, believing that Caspian was looking down on Vivian. Vivian's parents chimed in, accusing Caspian of making a mountain out of a molehill and not trusting Vivian. Caspian stormed out in anger, powerless to stop it. In the end, under pressure or perhaps encouragement from multiple parties, Vivian reluctantly took on the task. She dug out a few so-called ancient medical texts of unknown origin, their pages yellowed with age, and rigidly applied their principles to concoct a complex and potent prescription containing several toxic ingredients. The veteran cadre and his family, clutching at the straw of hope, followed the dosage instructions meticulously. As a result, on the third day of taking the medicine, the veteran cadre suffered sudden acute heart failure, rushed to the hospital. He could not be revived and passed away that same night. The death report issued by the hospital clearly indicates that the patient's cause of death is directly related to cardiac toxicity and multi-organ failure caused by taking unidentified traditional Chinese medicine. The family, who had been in the realm of hope, instantly fell into despair. Filled with grief and anger, they immediately reported the matter to the police and sued Vivian in court. Meanwhile, they contacted the media to fully expose the incident. Genius doctor, family secret recipe, caused the death of a retired senior official. Each of these phrases is enough to ignite public opinion. The news spread like wildfire. The Cinnabar incident, previously suppressed by the Liang family's money, was dredged up again. Along with it, every bit of Vivian's shady history from years of high-profile medical practice and free clinics was exposed for all to see. The media and netizens were in an uproar. A miracle doctor. More like a fraud, a murderer. I always said she was a con artist. She's nothing but hype. I heard she doesn't know the first thing about medicine, just spouts a few fancy terms to fool people. So the Leon family is rich. Does that make them special? Does money give them the right to treat human life as worthless? The victim is a retired senior official. They must be punished severely. Vivian's social media accounts were instantly flooded with a torrent of abuse. Her former admirers either fell silent or turned against her. The stock price of the Leon Group plummeted immediately, and partners have successively proposed to terminate or suspend cooperation. Vivian's parents were frantic, using all their connections to suppress the public opinion and settle with the victims' families. However, this time it involved human lives and the other party's special identity, making it not so easy to settle. They also tried to absolve Vivian of blame, shifting responsibility to errors in the ancient formula, the patient's severe underlying condition, misunderstanding by the family, who self-administered an increased dosage, and so on. But the evidence was overwhelming, and public opinion was overwhelming, making their excuses pale and futile. The most ironic and fatal blow came from Caspian's grandmother, this stubborn old lady. Upon learning that her old comrade in arms had been killed by the miracle doctor she had so highly recommended, was shocked, angry, and ashamed, leading to a sudden illness due to extreme distress. On her sickbed, she wept bitterly, confessing to Caspian and the Chu family that she was senile, trusted the wrong person, and caused the death of her old friend, and she firmly demanded that the Chu family cut ties with the Leon family and called for Vivian to be severely punished to give the deceased justice. The Chu family was already dissatisfied with the Leon family due to Caspian's opposition, and this incident only hastened their decision to sever ties. Caspian's father publicly issued a statement, expressing deep condolences and apologies to the victim's family, stating that the Chu family had no prior knowledge of the matter and supported a fair legal judgment. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the Chu family began rapidly withdrawing from various collaborations with the Leon family. When the wall falls, everyone pushes. The various factions that had previously been friendly with the Leon family and had been fawning over Vivian now distanced themselves, with some even taking the opportunity to expose more of the dirty deeds the Leon family had done over the years to package Vivian. Vivian was taken in by the police for investigation, although she was temporarily released on bail due to her inability to fully understand criminal responsibility and the Leon family's strenuous efforts. She was already disgraced and universally condemned. She stayed home, too afraid to face anyone, her mental state on the verge of collapse. She spent her days in tears, crying out, "I didn't mean to, they made me do it. It's all Lucia's fault." If it weren't for her, her words were chaotic and filled with venom. Vivian's parents seemed to age 10 years overnight. Half of Vivian's father's hair had turned white, while Vivian's mother wept constantly, seeking help everywhere but hitting dead ends. Their once proud miracle doctor daughter had become a murderer who took lives. The carefully built business empire they cherished was now in shambles, its reputation shattered, teetering on the edge. The daughter they once discarded like a piece of trash and considered a curse is now in another city, walking confidently and resolutely on her bright path as the top scorer in the provincial science exam and an outstanding freshman at a top medical school. The stark contrast, like the sharpest of ironies, torments their hearts day after day. Just as the Leon family was in disarray and Vivian was being hunted down by everyone, I received an unfamiliar call. The call display showed a number from Yunqing. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Hello, is this Lucia?" came a man's voice from the other end of the line. It sounded middle-aged, a bit dry, and carried a deliberately subdued tone. I recognized it immediately. It was Vivian's father, speaking. "May I ask who's calling?" I'm Richard." He paused, as if struggling to speak. "Vivian's father." Chapter 7. "Mr. Liang, is there something I can help you with?" My voice was calm, betraying no emotion. There was a silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds, followed by an almost inaudible sigh. Then, a lower voice, tinged with a pleading note, came through. "Lucia, I know this call is out of the blue, but could we meet? There are some things I'd like to discuss with you in person." "I'm sorry, Mr. Liang, but I don't think there's anything we need to discuss face-to-face." I refused him outright. "Wait, don't hang up." Vivian's father's voice grew urgent, even tinged with panic. "It's about your origins, Lucia. Aren't you even curious about who your birth parents are?" My heart sank a little, but my tone remained cold. "No, I'm not. My parents are Mr. and Mrs. Zhong, teachers at Yunqing No. 1 High School. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. You are my daughter." Vivian's father's voice rose sharply, then was forcibly suppressed, trembling as he spoke. "Lucia, you are my daughter, my flesh and blood. Back then, there was an accident. We had no choice. Your mother, your real mother. She regrets it every single day. She's missed you so much her hair has turned White, we know we were wrong, Lucia. Give your mom and dad a chance. Let us make it up to you. Please, make it up to me, a chance. I almost let out a cold, derisive laugh. In my past life, I gave you countless chances, only to be met with increasing disdain and ultimately being thrown out to take the blame. In this life, you unhesitatingly abandoned me, and now that Vivian has caused a huge disaster, ruined her reputation, and the Leon family is in turmoil, you suddenly remember me, your biological daughter, Mr. Leon. I spoke slowly, each word as cold as ice. I think you've got it wrong. First, I have no interest in your family's affairs. Second, my parents are alive and well, and my family is harmonious. We don't need outsiders to compensate. Third, if you're in trouble because of Miss Vivian and are looking to divert attention or do something, you've got the wrong person. Goodbye. After saying that, I didn't wait for a response and directly hung up the phone, then blocked the number. But that wasn't the end of it. A few days later, Vivian's mother, through some convoluted connections, actually managed to find her way to the entrance of my dormitory. She looked much more haggard, her clothes no longer as flashy as before, the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes were deep, and the moment she saw me come out, her eyes welled up with tears. She rushed forward, trying to grab my hand. Lucia, my daughter, I've finally found you. I took a step back, avoiding her hand, and coldly looked at her hand frozen midair, tears streaming down her face. Lucia, Mom knows she was wrong. Back then, Mom was blinded by greed. Mom is sorry. Come home with Mom, okay? Everything in the Leon family will be yours in the future. Mom and Dad will treat you even better, making up for everything we owe you. Madame Leon, I interrupted her tearful performance. Please watch your words. This is a school. Please don't make a scene or claim family ties casually. I will reiterate once more, my parents are Mr. Zhong Jianhua and Mrs. Martha. I have no connection to your Leon family. Please leave, or I will call security. Vivian's mother's face turned pale instantly. She looked at my cold and distant expression, as if seeing the daughter she had abandoned for the first time. There was no excitement, grievance, or longing that she had expected in that gaze, only an unfathomable coldness and disgust. How could you be so heartless? Vivian's mother staggered back, covering her face and crying, I'm your own mother. Where were you when I needed my mother the most? I asked softly, not as an accusation, but as a simple statement. Wasn't it you who turned and walked away at the orphanage gate? For the past 18 years, it's been Mom Zhong who showed me love, paid for my education, and taught me how to live. And now you come here telling me you're my birth mother. I shook my head, refusing to look at her any longer. I turned to the somewhat flustered dorm supervisor beside me and said, Auntie, I don't know this woman. She must have mistaken me for someone else. Could you please ask her to leave? The dorm supervisor nodded and politely, yet firmly, asked Vivian's mother to leave. Vivian's mother left, utterly devastated, her retreating figure a picture of haste and despair. I thought this whole farce would finally be over. Little did I know, when the Leon family saw their emotional appeals weren't working, they resorted to an even more despicable tactic. A week later, local media in Yunqing suddenly began running sensational stories about the so-called heartwarming tale of a hospital baby swap 18 years ago, leaving the true heiress of the Leon group to grow up in obscurity. In their narrative, Vivian's parents were portrayed as the devoted mother and father who searched for their daughter for years, tormented by guilt day and night, while I was cast as the fortunate girl, resilient, top of her class, finally found by her birth parents. The report also specifically emphasized how I, through my own efforts, became the top scorer in the college entrance exam and entered a top university, implying excellent genes and family tradition, and went to great lengths to portray how the Leon family is now overjoyed and eager for a reunion. The report completely omitted the abandonment at the orphanage gate, concealed their full support for Vivian over the years and their neglect and even suppression of me, the real heiress, and made no mention of Vivian's involvement in a fatal incident and the Leon family's current predicament. It was purely intended to use my good reputation to whitewash the Leon family's precarious image and see if they could acknowledge me back, gaining a good daughter while diverting public attention from Vivian's situation. The report sparked quite a bit of discussion, though few believed it due to the Leon family's now bankrupt credibility, especially some uninformed netizens, drawn in by the dramatic elements of Switched at Birth, Finding Family, and Top Scorer, expressed, this is too dramatic. If true, the girl is so pitiful/lucky. My phone is blowing up again, with many reporters wanting to interview me about this matter. Mr. and Mrs. Zhong also called anxiously, their voices filled with worry and anger. Lucia, don't pay attention to them. These people are shameless. Mrs. Zhong's voice trembled with anger. Lucia, your father has faith in you to handle this. Just tell us what you need from Home, anytime, Mr. Zhong said in a low, steady voice. After reassuring them, I went directly to my verified social media account and posted a brief statement. Lucia, was legally adopted and raised from a young age by Mr. Zhong Jianhua and Mrs. Martha of Yunqing. They are my only parents and have given me their complete love and upbringing. My life is happy, my studies are progressing well. And I have no connection whatsoever to the so-called Liang Group or its associates. Furthermore, I have never heard of any claims regarding a switched at birth scenario or a search for biological relatives. I urge certain media outlets and individuals to cease their false reporting and malicious harassment, or I will reserve the right to pursue legal action. I am grateful for everyone's concern, but I ask for peace and quiet to focus on my studies. Please do not disturb. The statement was clear and decisive, with a firm stance and no ambiguity or room for misinterpretation. After its release, it was quickly shared, and public opinion immediately shifted. The voices supporting me overwhelmingly dominated, with many condemning the Liang family for being shameless, trying to drag others down when things go wrong. And where were they earlier? The Liang family's move not only failed to gain any advantage but also backfired, earning them even harsher criticism. Vivian's parents probably didn't expect me to be so firm and resolute, not even willing to put on a facade, and directly tore off the mask. Just as the drama at the Liang family ended in a dismal manner, someone else I didn't expect found me. It was Caspian. He flew directly to the city I was in and waited for me at a cafe near our school. I didn't want to see him, but on second thought, some things perhaps need a clean break. The cafe was quiet. Caspian looked a bit thinner. The boyishness around his eyes had faded, replaced by a heavier, more somber air. He watched me walk in, his expression complicated. Have a seat. He pulled out the chair for me. I sat down, ordered a glass of water, and got straight to the point. Caspian, just tell me what this is about. Caspian's grip tightened on his coffee cup. He gave a wry smile. You're still so direct. He paused, as if searching for the right words. About the Liang family, you already know. It's all over the internet. It would be hard not to know. I want to apologize for my grandmother's stubbornness back then, and for everything the Liang family did. He lowered his head, his voice strained. Though I know this apology is inadequate, no need. I shook my head. That's between the two of you. It has nothing to do with me. You don't need to apologize to me on anyone's behalf. Caspian looked up, his gaze intense. Lucia, did you already know? Know what? I know Vivian isn't really knowledgeable about medicine. I know about the Liang family and your relationship. His gaze was sharp, trying to find a flaw in my expression. I met his gaze and said calmly, Caspian, I'm a student, and my focus is on my studies. Whether Vivian understands medicine or not is her business, and it's up to professional institutions and the law to judge. As for my relationship with the Liang family, I've already made it very clear in my statement. If you've come here today just to verify these baseless rumors, I don't think there's anything more to discuss. As I spoke, I began to rise. Wait, Caspian raised a hand in a half-hearted gesture to stop me, his voice dropping to a low, weary murmur. I'm not here to confirm anything. I can't understand it. How did it come to this? He sounded utterly exhausted and lost. He seemed to be asking me, or perhaps himself. I grew up with Vivian. Everyone always said she was brilliant, a genius, the pride of the Liang family. I believed it too, always tried to protect her, to go along with her, even when I started to feel something was off. I'd tell myself she was still young, she needed time, and what was the result? He gave a bitter, twisted smile that was worse than a grimace. The result was people died, families were destroyed, and I, like a fool, was blinded by that whole childhood friend and genius halo nonsense. I even resented you because of her. In my heart, I thought you stole the attention that was rightfully hers. He was referring to the vague, entangled grudges from his past life. I listened quietly without interrupting, until now. I have finally seen clearly. Caspian's gaze fell on my face, filled with pain, regret, and a subtle emotion that he might not even be aware of himself. Who is truly enlightened and truly strong? From the very beginning, you lived with clarity. You knew what you wanted, what to reject, and what to hold on to. No matter the temptation or the slander, you remained sober, always, without losing yourself. And I, along with the Liang family, we were like a group of clowns, acting out a ridiculous play with self-satisfaction. He shook his head deprecatingly. Lucia, I'm sorry, for the past life, and for this one, all the intentional or unintentional harm. He finally mentioned the past life, though vague. We both knew what it meant. I fell silent for a moment, looking at the handsome young man in front of me, who now seemed somewhat disheveled, stripped of all his pride, the grudges and passions of a past life, all that torment, pain, and despair. His apology didn't seem to stir up much of a ripple. Of course, there's still resentment, But what I feel more strongly now is a sense of release and a vast distance. I've received your apology, I spoke slowly, but I don't need it, and I won't forgive you. The harm is done, and an apology can't erase any of it. Caspian, our lives have been on parallel tracks ever since that day at the orphanage gate when we were 8. Your choices, your path, your consequences, they have nothing to do with me. I'll walk my own road, and I'll walk it well. As for my past life, I paused, my tone flat and unreadable. That was a nightmare. Once you wake up, you should forget it. In this life, I am Lucia, and I will only ever be Lucia. Your rebirth is your own fortune or punishment, but please don't disturb my life anymore. We are finished here. With that, I stood up. This time, I didn't linger. I walked straight out of the cafe, stepping outside. The sunlight was just right. I took a deep breath of the fresh air. Leaving that scene and all the past behind me, Caspian remained seated, staring in the direction I had vanished for a long, long time. He knew that some divides, once created, can never be crossed. Some people, once lost, can never be found again. In Vivian's case, under sustained public scrutiny and the persistence of the victim's family, ultimately entered the judicial process. Although the Leon family hired a top-tier legal team to vigorously defend her and attempt to minimize her culpability, the evidence was irrefutable and the impact egregious. In the end, the court found Vivian guilty of causing death through illegal medical practice, taking into account that she had just reached adulthood and that the victim's family issued a letter of understanding after receiving substantial compensation from the Leon family. Vivian was ultimately sentenced to 3 years in prison, suspended for 4 years. This means that while she will not go to prison immediately, she will have a criminal record and will be subject to strict supervision during her probation period. For the victims' families and the public, this outcome may still feel far too lenient, but for Vivian, proud, accustomed to living in the clouds and being the center of attention, it was nothing short of a devastating blow. She completely lost it, not a clinical breakdown, but a total warping and collapse of her very character. She hated everyone, hated her useless parents, the heartless Caspian and the Chu family, the meddlesome media and netizens, but most of all, she hated me, the true heiress who took everything from her. During her probation, she couldn't leave her residence, nor could she socialize and splurge like she used to. The Leon family's reputation was ruined because of this. Their business plummeted, their assets shrank significantly, and they were no longer the same as before. Vivian's parents quarreled and blamed each other all day long, and the house was as cold as an ice cave. Vivian locked herself in her room, addicted to the internet, cursing everything in the most vicious language in those anonymous corners, fantasizing about still being the sought-after miracle doctor, occasionally going live with a face full of anger, bizarre makeup, and speaking incoherently, attracting a small crowd of onlookers out of curiosity and drawing even more ridicule. She has been completely ruined. Vivian's parents, in despair and unwillingness, still haven't given up the idea of reclaiming me, especially after Vivian became completely unreliable. They began to see me as their last hope. Instead of going through the media, they tried to take the high road, reaching out to our school leaders, and even my advisor, under the guise of caring about my academic progress and hoping to provide financial support. In an attempt to establish contact indirectly and naturally, the school politely but firmly turned them away. My advisor even took the time to talk to me, reassuring me to focus on my studies and not to be distracted by irrelevant matters from the outside. The school would protect the legal rights of its students. Meanwhile, my college life continued to move forward steadily. I completed my basic courses with excellent grades and began my clinical internship. During my hospital internship, I treated patients with patience and meticulous care, was diligent and eager to learn, had strong practical skills, solid theoretical knowledge, and received unanimous praise from my supervisors and patients. I know this is the right path for me, using practical knowledge and skills to help those who truly need it. Mr. and Mrs. Zhong are in good health and live a peaceful life. I video call them every week, sharing funny stories from school and listening to them chat about all the little things happening at home. Every time I go home, I get to enjoy Mrs. Zhong's signature dishes and catch up with Mr. Zhong on the latest political news. The warmth of home is an inexhaustible source of energy that fuels my journey forward. In my junior year, I went abroad as an exchange student for a short-term study program at a top-tier medical school, broadened my horizons and met many outstanding peers. After returning home, I became even clearer about my future research direction. The Leon family, during my senior year, finally received the news of their complete collapse. The Leon Group, due to years of losses, bankruptcy of reputation, and several ill-advised investment decisions made by Vivian's father in a state of panic, completely broke its cash flow and had to file for bankruptcy liquidation. The once great family of Cloud City had vanished into thin air. Vivian's parents sold off their few remaining assets, moved out of the mansion, and settled into an ordinary apartment. Vivian's probation period wasn't over yet, so she still lived with them, but their relationship was already like fire and water. It said she often hurled abuse at her parents, blaming them for ruining her life, leaving the household in a constant state of turmoil. I only learned these bits of news in passing, from the occasional conversations of old classmates. It felt like hearing a distant and unfamiliar story, leaving my heart utterly unmoved. In my 5th year, having ranked first in my major, I earned the qualification to directly pursue a PhD under a top professor at my university. The research topic involves cutting-edge areas of medical science. I know, my journey in medicine has only just begun. The night before I started my PhD, I received a call from an unfamiliar local number. This time, it was Vivian's mother. Her voice was old and hoarse, filled with heavy sobs and a humble plea. "Lucia, please, I'm begging you, see your mother one last time, won't you? I know I don't deserve to face you, but I truly can't go on living. Vivian, she wishes I were dead. Lucia, you're a doctor, save me. Please, save your mother." I listened to her sobbing pleas in silence, my heart turning to ice. In my past life, when I was the one groveling for a shred of their affection, did they ever show me an ounce of mercy? And now, in this life, when they've run out of options, they suddenly remember they have a doctor for a daughter. "Mrs. Liang," I began calmly, "firstly, for mental health or family issues, please seek help from a professional counselor or community services. Secondly, if you or a family member has a physical ailment, please go to a proper hospital. Finally, please do not call this number again. I can't help you, nor do I wish to get involved in your life." With that, I hung up and blocked the number. This was the 3rd time that number had found its way onto my block list. I later heard that Vivian's mother did indeed see a therapist, but with little effect. Vivian's father found a barely subsistence job, once a top executive, now has to watch others' faces. After Vivian's probation ended, she disappeared without a trace. Some say they saw her in a small town in the south, heavily made up and behaving oddly. No longer the glamorous Miss Liang of the past. Their fate is the consequence of their own choices. I have no intention to judge, nor do I need to pity. My doctoral journey was both busy and fulfilling. Under the guidance of my advisor, I made significant breakthroughs in my research, published several high-impact papers, and began to make a name for myself in the international academic community. Although my parents didn't understand the complex terminology of my research, every time they listened to my simple explanations and saw the spark in my eyes, they knew their daughter was doing something meaningful, and that was enough for them. During that time, I heard that Caspian had taken over part of the family business and was doing exceptionally well, already emerging as a rising star in the business world of Yunqing. He is now humble and pragmatic, a completely different person from before. We have never met again, nor have we had any contact. That past filled with mistakes, prejudice, and harm is like a faded old photograph, completely sealed away by time. In the year I graduated with my PhD, I won an International Young Medical Award for a significant research achievement. The award ceremony was held overseas, and I, as the youngest winner, took the stage to speak. Standing under the spotlight, facing experts and scholars from around the world, I spoke in Chinese, calm and clear. Thank you to the organizing committee for this honor. Behind this achievement lies the meticulous guidance of my mentor, the collaboration of my team, and most importantly, the unwavering support of my family, my parents, Mr. Zhong Jianhua and Ms. Martha, who may never fully understand what I research, but have given me unconditional love, trust, and support, providing me with a safe haven to return to. They taught me that medicine is not just science, but also a humane art. It is not just about curing diseases, but about preserving life and dignity. This award belongs to all the dedicated medical professionals and to every family member who supports them from behind the scenes. Thank you. My speech was broadcast live back to the country. Mr. and Mrs. Zhong sat before the television, watching their daughter stand on the world-class podium, poised and confident with a quiet radiance. They held each other's hands tightly, tears streaming down their faces. They were tears of pride, tears of joy. In a rundown apartment somewhere, Vivian's parents might have seen the news too. One can only wonder what churned in their hearts as they watched that dazzling figure on the screen. A person bound to them by blood, yet more distant than a stranger. Was it regret, envy, or utter numbness? After returning home with the award, I turned down lucrative offers from several top-tier overseas research institutions and hospitals. Instead, I chose to come back to my home country and joined a major hospital renowned for its equal emphasis on clinical practice and scientific research. I wanted to apply what I had learned where it was truly needed, on the eve of starting my new job, I made a trip back to Yinqing. Mr. and Mrs. Joan prepared a feast, inviting all our relatives and friends over for a lively celebration. During the meal, Mr. Joan had a few extra drinks, grabbed my hand, and told everyone, "The thing I'm most proud of in my life is having Lucia as my daughter. She's not our biological child, but she's even closer than a biological child. She's our lucky star." Everyone laughed in agreement, and the atmosphere was warm and harmonious. At this point, a distant relative, probably drunk, slurred, "Lucia has really made a name for herself now. She's a world-renowned doctor. I heard that the wealthy Liang family, the one whose daughter caused a patient's death, seems to have some connection with Lucia." Ouch. Before he could finish, his wife pinched him hard, and he awkwardly stopped talking. There was a brief moment of silence at the dinner table. Everyone's eyes turned to me, some with concern, others with curiosity. I set down my chopsticks, picked up my wine glass, and smiled at my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Joan, and everyone else, saying, "Dad, Mom, dear uncles and aunts, those insignificant people and events from the past are long gone. Now and in the future, I am simply Lucia, the daughter of the Joan family, and a doctor. I am content with my life and grateful for everything I have. This toast is for my parents, for all the family who care for me, and for all of us. May we be blessed with peace, joy, health, and smooth sailing." After speaking, I tilted my head back and drank it all. The wine is sweet, and the heart is warm. The eyes of Mr. and Mrs. Joan reddened again, and they kept saying, "Good, good." Others also raised their glasses, diverting the conversation, and the dining table was filled with laughter once more. Those past entanglements, those malicious schemes, and those late and cheap regrets, all of them, in the face of my steadfast journey forward, have long been as insignificant as dust, gently brushed away, leaving no trace. My story is Lucia's story. It's a story about being healed by love, about personal growth, and about earning respect and a future through knowledge and hard work. As for those who took the wrong path and are consumed by regret, the pyres of their own making have long since burned to ashes, and I will keep walking toward my own vast and bright future. End of the full text. Story 2. My husband brought his distant cousin home and gave his parents a century-old lingji mushroom as a gift on Chinese New Year's Eve. My mother-in-law made me, 8 months pregnant, cook a feast and prepare soup for the entire village. I recognized that the so-called lingji was actually a highly toxic wild mushroom, so I quickly dumped the entire pot of poisonous mushroom soup into the trash. When my husband saw this, he kicked me in the stomach and called me a worthless hag who couldn't recognize a precious thing. My in-laws shoved my face into a trash can and forced me to eat poisonous mushrooms. I was beaten until I miscarried, taken to an illegal clinic where my uterus was removed, and then given to the village's old bachelor. Upon learning I couldn't bear children, the old bachelor tortured me to death using every perverted method imaginable. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn, returning to the day my husband brought his stingy cousin home. Such a beautiful lingji mushroom must cost at least 500 yuan, right? We country folks are tough as nails. What's the point of us eating something this fancy, you old woman just don't know any better. This lingji is worth at least 1,000 yuan. If we eat this, we're bound to live to 100. I watched as my in-laws excitedly praised that century-old lingji, the very thing that would end up killing me. I pinched my own thigh hard. A searing pain shot through my long-numbed legs. My eyes instantly welled up with tears. Heaven showed mercy and granted me a second chance at life. I was reborn on the very day my husband Zachary brought home his so-called distant cousin. Yvette, Mom, Dad, you're treating this century-old lingji like some common wild mushroom you can pick up for a few $100. This is the finest grade of lingji available. Yvette spent 200,000 to get you this exceptional health supplement. The moment Zachary spoke, his parents let out shrill exclamations that sounded like roosters crowing. What? 200,000? That's enough to build an entire house back in our hometown. Spending that much on a single mushroom is just outrageous. If I consume something this expensive, I won't be able to sleep at night. Yvette, you're far too extravagant with your money. Child, 01. My thrifty in-laws, who had been frugal their entire lives, lips so pained their faces contorted. Aunt, uncle, this is just a small token of my affection. As long as it helps keep you healthy, that's all the happiness I need. Yvette, true to her elegant name with her stylish golden waves and fashionable attire, gazed tenderly at Zachary. Watching them exchange lingering glances and subtle flirtations, I finally realized how foolish I had been in my past life. It was a cosmic-level blunder. The affair between them was so obvious it practically oozed from their every glance, yet my past self actually believed they were distant cousins. Joanne, what are you standing there for? Hurry up and take this century-old lingji mushroom to the kitchen to make soup. Zachary and Yvette must be tired from the long drive. They need something nourishing, my mother-in-law commanded. Looking at me, Zachary looked at me, a flicker of disdain in his eyes. Lingji is highly potent. Just cut a piece for the soup. Don't use it all at once. In my past life, I was so wrapped up in the joy of Zachary's return that I completely missed the contempt in his eyes, recalling how I'd poured my heart out to Zachary in my past life. only to be betrayed into losing my family and our unborn child. I could barely resist grabbing the fruit knife from the table and ending him right then and there. Don't worry, our old housekeeper Linda used to make lingji mushroom for me and my parents all the time. I know exactly how to prepare it. Wouldn't dream of wasting such precious ingredients, stuffing yourselves with all those tonics every day. No wonder your parents died so young. City folk like you should know better. When you're weak, strong tonics just overwhelm the system. Dumb as pigs, the lot of you. Watching my mother-in-law's sneering face, I clenched my hands beneath my thighs until my nails dug deep into my palms. The sharp, physical pain was nothing compared to the anguish tearing through my heart. It's all my fault for being blind to Zachary's true nature. A social climbing monster in gentleman's clothing, he conspired with our housekeeper, using incompatible food combinations to slowly poison my parents to death. And Yvette, who claims to be a distant cousin, is actually the daughter of that housekeeper, the one who worked for our family for 20 years and whom we treated as family. Mom, it's been almost 2 years since my parents passed. Could you please stop speaking of them that way? With tears welling in my eyes, I gazed at my mother-in-law with a pitiful expression, my voice dripping with sorrow and grievance. Joanne, my mother is just an uneducated countrywoman. Don't stoop to her level. Every time my mother-in-law said something hurtful in the past, Zachary would use that excuse to brush me off, and each time, I would choose to forgive and accept it. This time, I'm certainly no exception. As the younger generation, I won't hold it against my elders. I wiped away my tears and forced a cheerful smile, saying magnanimously, you spend time with our cousin, I'll go prepare the meal. Thanks for your hard work, cousin-in-law. Yvette rested her head on Zachary's lap. Cousin, after 10 hours in the car, my shoulders are so sore, could you give me a massage? Then she suddenly sat up as if startled. I forgot you're a married man now. We can't be as physically close as we were when we were kids. What's the big deal? You're cousins. It's just a massage, nothing intimate about it. My mother-in-law from my previous life said the same thing, so I didn't think much of it at the time and just took the lingji mushroom to the kitchen to make them soup. Yvette lay back down across Zachary's lap, tilting her head with a bright smile as she looked at me. You don't mind if cousin gives me a massage, do you? Cousin's wife, watching. Yvette rested her hand on Zachary's thigh, her head pillowed on the back of her pale slender hand that rose and fell rhythmically. Then seeing Zachary's strained attempt to appear composed, I gave a faint smile. Of course I don't mind. Your cousins' massages are perfectly normal. I'm not that petty. Standing in the kitchen, I took out the old hen my mother-in-law had woken me at 4 a.m. to slaughter and pluck. Then brought the cleaver down on the chicken with all my strength, again and again, as if the chunks of meat I was hacking apart weren't from the chicken, but from the 4 people happily chatting outside. If murder weren't a crime, I'd skin those 4 outside alive and slice them to ribbons right now. I was taking out my rage on the chicken when the kitchen door swung open. Joanne, don't cut the lingji mushrooms yet. I'm saving them for tomorrow's New Year's Eve feast to impress our guests with such fine ingredients. Chop the meat more quietly. Don't disturb Yvette's rest. Honestly, you're all thumbs, useless at everything. City women are just good for nothing. Clutching the lingji box like a treasure, my mother-in-law shot me a disgusted look before turning away, gritting my teeth against the urge to slam the cleaver into her back. I kept my head down and continued chopping the chicken. An hour and a half later, I brought 4 dishes and a soup to the table, calling everyone to dinner. A plate of moldy pickled vegetables that had been rinsed clean, a plate of pitch black cured bacon aged for over a year, a serving of fermented winter melon, a mountain town elder's favorite, a plate of pickled fish, a large bowl of old hen soup with goji berries, red dates, and pickled mustard tuber. I thoughtfully poured each of them a bowl of the aged medicinal wine that my father-in-law had been storing in the cellar for years. Why did you serve this? Is this something Yvette can even eat? Zachary looked at me with displeasure, his tone dripping with disdain. I raised an eyebrow slightly. After all these years of living in luxury at my house, Zachary seemed to have forgotten what he used to eat growing up. I'm such a complete and utter fool, a man who refuses to remember his roots. Yet in my past life I cherished him like the rarest treasure. Mom mentioned these were all your childhood favorites. Since it's our cousin's first visit, I thought she might like to try what you enjoyed growing up. If you'd prefer something else, I'll clear these dishes and make you a fresh meal. I spoke cautiously, reaching to remove the dishes. No need for new dishes. This is plenty. Eating too much at night is hard on digestion, my mother-in-law said, sharply swatting my hand away. I knew my thrifty mother-in-law, who's been frugal all her life, would step in to stop me the moment she heard I was going to throw the food away. Auntie is right. It's better to have something light for dinner. Besides, these are all dishes you loved as a child. I'd like to try the foods you enjoyed growing up too. Yvette was nestled cozily next to Zachary like a delicate little bird, while I waited on all 4 of them from start to finish. Just like a nanny is 02, I served Zachary food from the dishes and ladled soup and rice for my parents-in-law. Zachary, this is what you ate as a child. To think you managed to get into Capital University under such difficult circumstances. And now you're running a company worth billions. You're truly exceptional. I'm in awe, just as I expected. Yvette's admiring gaze didn't elicit any hint of pride or smugness from Zachary. Despite coming from an impoverished mountain village, Zachary detested anyone knowing about his humble origins. When I first introduced him to my social circle, my friends would ask about life in the mountains. He'd just tense up, give curt replies with a stony expression. My friend was genuinely curious about rural life and meant no disrespect, but he took it the wrong way, thinking my friend was mocking his background. Not wanting to embarrass Zachary, I quietly told my friend to avoid asking about his origins. My friend then tore into me, calling me a hopeless case of lovesick foolishness. Back then, I was so completely smitten with Zachary that I didn't take my friend's advice to heart, and that's how I ended up in such a miserable situation. You're absolutely right. Our Zachary is truly remarkable. When he was little, our family was so poor we couldn't even afford 3 meals a day. One time, during a heavy rainstorm, Mom, let's eat and not dredge up those old stories from the past. Your mother's getting forgetful in her old age. Now that life is so comfortable, she loves reminiscing about the old days. Eat more and talk less, father-in-law said as he placed a piece of fermented winter melon into mother-in-law's bowl. Granny proudly placed the fermented winter melon in Zachary's bowl like it was a treasure. When Zachary was little, he loved eating fermented winter melon with rice. Just one piece could season 3 whole bowls for him. At Granny's words, Zachary's face darkened even more. It wasn't that Zachary enjoyed fermented winter melon as a child, but rather his family's poverty left him no other choice. Now accustomed to gourmet delicacies and mingling with affluent circles, I've grown used to these refined things. Someone as proud as Zachary would probably never want to taste fermented winter melon again in his life. Ignoring Zachary's scowl, I also picked up a piece of fermented winter melon and placed it in Yvette's bowl. Cousin, you should try this too. Grandma specially fermented this for Zachary a year ago. It's truly delicious. Stinky winter melon follows the same principle as stinky tofu. Those who love it find its pungent aroma strangely appealing, but for those who dislike it, the experience feels like eating garbage. The year-fermented stinky melon develops an exceptionally tender texture that's simply out of this world. Having lived in this mountain village for over a year, I'm often pressured by my mother-in-law to try their local delicacy, but I still can't stomach stinky winter melon. Every time I ate it, I'd end up vomiting and having diarrhea. It wasn't until she got pregnant that she stopped forcing me to eat it. Having grown up in the southern Jiangnan water towns, Yvette should be no exception. I must eat more of what my cousin loves most. Yvette took a bite, her face contorted as if she'd just eaten something disgusting, and she had to force down the urge to vomit. I knew that as a plaything meant to provide excitement for Zachary, Yvette would force herself to like it even if she hated it. It's really delicious. I've never tasted such amazing food before. Seeing Yvette praise the fermented winter melon, her mother-in-law eagerly served her another piece. Yvette clearly has an auspicious air about her, unlike some people who look like they'd bring misfortune to both parents. Get me more rice. My father-in-law handed me his empty bowl. I dutifully took the bowl and served him another generous portion of rice. During the year I've been in the countryside caring for my in-laws, I've kept these nutrient-poor dishes off their plates for the sake of their health. Whenever they put up a fuss, I'd just give Zachary a call. After getting an earful from their son, my in-laws had no choice but to eat the nutritious meals I prepared. Having gone over a year without the foods they'd eaten most of their lives, my in-laws thoroughly enjoyed every bite of this meal. With Yvette witnessing his past struggles and humiliations, Zachary's face no longer carried the smug satisfaction and secret delight he'd reveled in during our previous life. In our past life, I prepared a lavish feast, only to watch Zachary and Yvette feed each other sweetly at the table, treating me as if I were invisible. After my miscarriage, when they imprisoned me, I finally realized they'd returned to our hometown only after exhausting every thrill the city had to offer, seeking fresh excitement by carrying on their affair right under the nose of me, the lawful wife. This time around, the meal I prepared was designed to humiliate Zachary, leaving him in no mood for flirtation with Yvette. I woke up too early today and feel a bit lightheaded. I heard lingji powder is very nourishing. Could you sprinkle some from the lingji root into my soup? It won't affect showing it to our relatives. Zachary was about to speak when his mother-in-law cut in first. No, lingji is so delicate. What if it accidentally breaks? Then our relatives wouldn't be able to see it in one piece. You're right, Mother. We shouldn't disregard our cousin's thoughtful gift. I'll just have more chicken soup instead. I picked up the bowl, took just one sip, and immediately spat it out. What are you doing? Who are you trying to disgust? My mother-in-law yelled at me angrily, and I quickly apologized. I'm sorry. I might have been smelling the cooking fumes for too long, and my stomach is a bit upset. City folks are so dramatic. If you're not eating, then get lost. Don't ruin our meal. I'll go upstairs and rest for a bit then. I got up to leave, my face full of hurt, just as my mother-in-law's voice sounded behind me. Come down and do the dishes after we finish eating. In the bedroom, sitting on the sofa, I watched through my phone's surveillance feed as my mother-in-law carefully took the century-old Lingji mushroom out of its box and gently scraped powder from its root with a fruit knife. 03. Since my in-laws are getting on in years and I've been feeling drowsy during my pregnancy, I installed a hidden camera in the living room out of concern that I might not hear if they took a fall. Son, Lingji is highly nourishing. You've been driving all day and must be tired. Have some more. My mother-in-law placed the chicken soup sprinkled with Lingji powder in front of Zachary. You've been working so hard hunting in the mountains for our son, dear. Make sure you eat well too. Yes, I'll eat more. I plan to live a long, healthy life. Yvette, please have some too. The stingy mother-in-law only scraped a symbolic amount for Yvette. Auntie, I've been on a special diet to regulate my health lately. I'm afraid the Lingji mushroom might be too potent for my system, so I'll pass on the soup. When your constitution is weak, it can't handle strong tonics, just like Joanne's poor departed parents who had no blessings to enjoy such things. Old man, you have this instead. As she spoke, mother-in-law poured the soup from Yvette's bowl into father-in-law's. Watching the three of them devour the large bowl of chicken soup with such relish, a cold smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. The reason Yvette didn't take that Lingji powder was because it wasn't actually the expensive Lingji she had purchased, it was just some wild poisonous mushrooms she had casually picked from the mountainside. She had no idea whether they were safe to eat, which is why she didn't dare try them. I looked up this poisonous mushroom on my phone. Even a small amount can cause abdominal pain, diarrhea, and hallucinations. I wonder what kind of hallucinations Zachary and his parents would experience after ingesting that poisonous mushroom powder. That evening, after cleaning up the kitchen, I excused myself to bed early, claiming an upset stomach. Zachary considerately suggested that with my growing belly, he should sleep in the guest room next door to avoid accidentally harming the baby. In my past life, I couldn't bear to sleep separately from Zachary. I pleaded with him for the longest time, but he never stayed. In this lifetime, I can't stand the sight of him fast enough. Naturally, I wouldn't dream of clinging to him. In the dead of night, I was jolted awake by my mother-in-law's agonized and frantic cries. Old man, open the door quick. My stomach hurts so bad I can't take it anymore. I need to use the toilet. Old woman, my stomach's killing me too. Just go do your business in the vegetable patch outside. I opened the door and saw my mother-in-law hunched over, clutching her stomach as she hurried downstairs. Soon after, the door to the adjacent bedroom swung open, and Zachary and Yvette rushed out with pained expressions. Open the door. I need to use the bathroom, Yvette exclaimed anxiously, pounding on the restroom door. Go outside. I need the toilet too, Dad. I told you we should have installed a bathroom in every room, but you insisted on saving money and water. Now we don't have enough toilets. This is what happens when you cut corners and end up paying the price. Clutching his stomach, Zachary cursed under his breath as he bolted downstairs. Cousin, did you shit your pants? Through the crack in the door, I saw Zachary in just his shorts, dark filth streaming down his legs. Yvette was pinching her nose, backing away with a look of utter disgust. Zachary turned, his eyes blazing crimson as he stared at Yvette. Do you think I'm disgusting? Before Yvette could respond, Zachary flew into a frenzy, choking her and slapping her repeatedly across the face. Yvette, who had been suffering from diarrhea after eating spoiled winter melon, vomited all over Zachary's face from the force of the blow. Covered in vomit, Zachary's gaze turned even more sinister and vicious as he lifted Yvette by the throat into the air. You bitch, how dare you spit on me? I hate it when people look down on me the most. You bitch, you eat my food, drink my drinks, and still have the nerve to look down on me. Anyone who looks down on me deserves to die, every last one of them. Zachary, I don't look down on you. I love you the most. How could I possibly look down on you? Yvette's face burned with pain, and the terror of suffocation, combined with her existing stomach cramps, made Zachary's torment cause her to completely lose control of her bowels. In an instant, the floor was covered with disgusting filth. When Yvette tried to escape, Zachary pinned her down in the filth and savagely beat her, then grabbed a handful of the waste and forced it into her mouth. Zachary, I don't look down on you. I really don't. Please, I'm begging you, let me go. No matter how desperately Yvette pleaded, Zachary kept beating her like a madman. Her agonizing screams echoed throughout the large room. Just then, the mother-in-law came over and saw Zachary, covered in filth, violently assaulting Yvette. She hesitated between stepping in to help and recoiling in disgust. The bathroom door swung open, and the father-in-law emerged. The mother-in-law hurried over to him. What on earth happened? Before the mother-in-law could finish speaking, the father-in-law slapped her hard across the face. You shameless woman. The moment I go out to sell flutes, you run straight to the village chief's house. Tell me the truth. Is Zachary your son with the village chief? Kenneth, have you lost your mind? Before the mother-in-law could finish, the father-in-law slapped her hard across the face again. How dare you? Hit me, Kenneth, I'll fight you to the death. The mother-in-law lunged at the father-in-law's face with her claws bared, in pain from being scratched. The father-in-law grabbed her by the hair and shoved her face toward the filth on the ground. You cheating whore, eat shit. The usually meek and submissive grandfather, who always deferred to his wife, was now like a battle-crazed general, pummeling his wife with relentless blows. His ferocious assault left the normally domineering grandmother completely defenseless. Help, Joanne, get in here now. He's killing her. This is murder. A faint, cold smile played on my lips as my mother-in-law howled for help. This house with its massive garden was built by Zachary on expensive village land he'd purchased, situated at the very edge of the village. It was a good 300 meters from the nearest neighbor. The house was constructed and finished with top-tier materials. Even if my mother-in-law and Yvette screamed themselves hoarse, no one would hear a thing. Both Zachary and his father stood over 6 feet tall. In their grasp, Yvette and my mother-in-law were as helpless as frightened chicks. They beat him so badly that he soon lost even the strength to cry for help. As I surveyed the gruesome battlefield, a fraction of my hatred began to dissipate. It turns out the hallucinations induced by these poisonous mushrooms reveal the deepest secrets buried within one's psyche. Two-faced Zachary absolutely detests being looked down upon. My honest and simple-minded father-in-law was cheated on by his wife. It turns out those whispered rumors in the village weren't just baseless gossip after all. As for why my mother-in-law didn't experience hallucinations, it's probably because she gave her own bowl of soup, the one laced with reishi mushroom powder, to her son out of motherly concern. I'm really curious. What kind of hallucinations would my mother-in-law have had if she'd taken the reishi powder? What shocking secrets will come to light next? My gaze fell upon Yvette's battered, barely conscious face as a cold sneer formed in my heart. Yvette, weren't you the one who loved coming up with thrilling games for Zachary? How does this taste? Thrilling enough to satisfy your twisted desires? I quietly closed the door I had been peeking through, locked it, put my earplugs back in, and completely shut out the blood-curdling screams outside. Zachary, consider today's little episode just an appetizer for you and your family. The main course of misery is yet to come. I'm genuinely looking forward to tomorrow's New Year's Eve feast, where I'll be hosting the entire village. Open up, open the door, hurry up and open it. Early in the morning, my mother-in-law was frantically banging on my door. I only got up to open it after she had screamed herself hoarse. Yawning, I took out my earplugs. Good morning, mother-in-law. Happy Lunar New Year's Eve, 04. I'll kill you, you wretched woman, she said, raising her hand to slap me. I held my mother-in-law's hand, staring at her and Yvette's bruised faces behind her in shock. Mother-in-law, cousin, what happened to your faces? Last night Zachary and his father got drunk and went wild. Yvette, and I tried to stop them but couldn't. I called for you so loudly. Why didn't you come out to help us? Perfect. They've come up with their own excuses to comfort themselves, so I don't even need to make up a reason. I was worried they might connect yesterday's incident to the century old Lingji mushroom and decide not to use it to make soup for the whole village today. What? Zachary and Dad got drunk. Your face was hit by Zachary and Dad. I feigned disbelief, saying, when I was with Zachary before, he'd get drunk too, but he's always been a well-behaved drinker. He never hits people. I'm so sorry. My head was buzzing and I felt awful yesterday, so I put in my sleep earplugs and didn't hear you. I opened my palm and held out the sleep earplugs to my mother-in-law. My face a picture of innocence. Mom, please don't blame Joanne. She's having a tough time with the pregnancy too. With the earplugs in, she really couldn't hear anything. If you're going to blame anyone, blame me. I'm the one who drank too much herbal liquor. Zachary looked at me tenderly and said, darling, it's New Year's Eve. What would you like for our reunion dinner? I'll drive you downtown to get whatever you want. Would you prefer swimming crabs or lobster? Let's get some red grouper too. Tender flesh, few bones, just how you like it. I was taken aback. In my previous life, on this very New Year's Eve, Zachary never offered to take me out to buy whatever I wanted to eat, let alone seafood. My in-laws were true mountain folk who look down on seafood. They claim eating seafood will shorten their lifespan. Though Zachary loves seafood, he often disparages it, saying it doesn't deserve a place on the New Year's Eve dinner table. In our previous life, Zachary drove to the city with Yvette and his parents, filling the trunk with New Year's goods, while I, heavy with child, spent the entire afternoon cleaning and cooking alone, preparing 5 full tables of New Year's Eve feast by myself. This time around, Zachary has had a change of heart. Did he get tired of Yvette after she saw him in such a sorry state? My belly is too big. I feel sick as soon as I get in the car. Why don't you take our cousin and the others instead? I pretended to be unwell. That's right, cousin, since your wife is so far along, the 4 of us can go together. Yvette cozied up to Zachary, her voice dripping with sweetness. You stay home then. We'll be back as soon as we've bought what we need. Zachary gently removed Yvette's hand. Your cousin is in her 3rd trimester. I'm not comfortable leaving her alone. Stay and help her prepare for the village feast. I sneered inwardly as I watched Zachary walk away without even waiting for Yvette's response. It seems my hunch was right. The prideful Zachary, after having Yvette witness his humiliating childhood and his bout of diarrhea in front of her, is now pushing her away like some disposable plaything, just like how he shipped off me, his lawful wife, to this remote village to wait on his parents, out of sight, out of mind. But if Yvette's mother teamed up with Zachary to poison my parents, do you really think Zachary would just discard Yvette that easily? After watching Zachary drive away, Yvette turned to me with a knowing smirk. Cousin-in-law, I want steak and snow fungus soup with lotus seeds for breakfast. Go make it. You've got hands and feet. If you want something to eat, make it yourself. I need to prepare for the feast I'm hosting for the villagers. Without even glancing at Yvette, I heaved my pregnant body into motion, moving with difficulty. Cousin-in-law, you're so virtuous. My cousin is truly blessed to have married someone as cultured and reasonable as you. Your parents, watching from heaven, must be so comforted to see how capable you've become. I could clearly hear the blatant sarcasm in Yvette's words. My hands gripped the chair until my knuckles turned white, nails scraping streaks into the varnish, the fury blazing inside me. I forced it down. Haste makes waste. Let these villains reap what they sow and be destroyed by their own hands. These scumbags aren't worth dirtying my hands over. 3 hours later, Zachary and his in-laws returned with a trunk full of groceries, unlike his previous life. This time Zachary bought loads of seafood, and it was all my favorite kinds, too. I put a lot of effort and meticulous care into preparing this New Year's Eve dinner. Unlike in my past life, Zachary didn't leave me to handle everything alone. He asked several women from the village to help me, and even offered to wash vegetables together before Yvette called him away under the pretense of discussing urgent matters. By the time the two of them came back downstairs, 2 hours had already passed, seeing Zachary looking refreshed and Yvette's flushed, glowing face, clearly well satisfied. It was obvious what kind of exercise they'd been engaged in during those 2 hours. I pretended not to notice and continued dutifully preparing the New Year's Eve dinner. Yvette, Joanne said she doesn't know how to prepare this without wasting such a fine century-old lingji mushroom. We country folks certainly don't know how to cook it either. Since you bought it, you must know the proper way. Why don't you make this lingji soup for everyone? My mother-in-law announced loudly while holding the exquisitely packaged box. Upon hearing about the century-old lingji, everyone immediately dropped what they were doing and gathered around, exclaiming in amazed admiration, Zachary's mom, you're incredibly generous to share such a magnificent lingji with us. We're truly fortunate to have you as our neighbor. Absolutely, Zachary's mom. You're truly amazing to have raised such a brilliant son who's now a successful boss. I've always known Zachary was a bright kid since he was little. Now he's grown up and hasn't forgotten his roots, coming back to give back to our village. What a grateful young man. Yvette took the lingji mushroom box with the air of a hostess and said, while working with my cousin, I've heard him talk constantly about how much the villagers helped him. Today, I'm going to use this $200,000 worth of lingji to prepare a nutritious and delicious soup for everyone. Please make sure to enjoy yourselves and have your fill. When everyone heard the lingji was worth $200,000, they praised Zachary's family to the skies, saying there was no one else like them on earth. My in-laws couldn't stop smiling, especially my mother-in-law. If her face weren't still swollen, she'd be grinning from ear to ear like an outsider. I kept my head down and washed bowl after bowl of vegetables. Soon, 5 tables were set for the New Year's Eve feast, and villagers began trickling in. All right, Zachary was surrounded by the village men, who showered him with flattering compliments, punctuated by his own hearty laughter. Honey, stop chatting. Dinner's ready, I said softly as I approached Zachary to call him to the meal. The crowd once again praised Zachary for his good fortune in marrying a beautiful, wealthy city girl before everyone took their seats. Just like yesterday, I excused myself upstairs citing exhaustion and an upset stomach. Before entering the room, I locked both the front door downstairs and the bedroom door, ensuring my space was completely secure. The weather was absolutely perfect today, with the sun shining warmly. People in the countryside love lively open-air feasts. These 5 tables for the New Year's Eve dinner were set upright in the spacious courtyard. Standing by the window, I watched with a smile as everyone raised their glasses and joyfully enjoyed the grand banquet. The Heiress mushroom soup was the star of the dinner table. Worried they might miss out on the $200,000 soup, the villagers, who normally never drink soup before meals, all filled their bowls to the brim. With each sip, they marveled at it being the most exquisite taste on earth. Help yourself to more, the more, the better. Half an hour later, just as father-in-law raised his bowl to drink the soup, the village chief sitting beside him snatched it away and downed the entire bowl of lingji mushroom soup in one gulp. Father-in-law's face shifted through a series of expressions before he finally picked up a crab with his chopsticks and began to eat. Watching him swallow his pride like that made the smile on my lips grow wider. Was the village chief's public provocation against father-in-law a sign that the poisonous mushroom soup was taking effect? How would a father-in-law, who has endured the humiliation of being cuckolded for years, finally fight back? Another 10 minutes passed, and a deafening sound shattered the cheerful chatter at the dinner table. Zachary, you're my son. I'm your real father. It's me you Should be honoring, not this useless coward Kenneth. Uncle Lou, what nonsense are you talking about? Zachary's face flushed red as he asked in displeasure. Zachary, my husband isn't talking nonsense. You are our son, and your filial duty belongs to our Lou family. This big house rightfully belongs to the Lius. The village chief's wife pointed at the old man and sneered. I've tested it myself. Kenneth is completely impotent. He can't father children at all. As soon as the village chief's wife said this, the villagers' expressions shattered. They stared wide-eyed at Zachary in utter disbelief. Zachary's face visibly flushed crimson, looking as if he wished the ground would swallow him whole. Gordon, you're spouting nonsense. I'll beat the living daylights out of you, you bastard. The father-in-law's face flushed crimson, his eyes blazing with fury as he swung his fist straight at the village chief's face. The village chief was sent sprawling to the ground by the father-in-law's powerful punch. In a flash, the father-in-law pinned him down and was about to throw another punch when the mother-in-law kicked him flying. You useless impotent bastard, it's because you can't get it up and can't father children. If Gordon hadn't helped me conceive, your mother would have beaten me to death long ago. You worthless good-for-nothing. You've known all along that Zachary isn't your son, after basking in the blessings he's brought you all these years. How dare you lay a hand on Gordon? Stripped of all pretense and stone-cold sober. The old man watched as everyone stared at him with mocking eyes. His face flushed crimson, then turned ashen, then deepened to a furious purple. Finally, like an enraged lion, he kicked his wife aside, pounced on the village chief, and began pummeling the man's head with blow after furious blow. The chief was 10 years older, a man in his 70s, and stood no chance against his 60-year-old assailant, utterly defenseless. He could only let out blood-curdling screams. Seeing this, the chief's wife grabbed a liquor bottle from the table in a panic and smashed it against the old man's head with all her might. My father-in-law let out a pained cry as he was struck and collapsed to the ground. The village chief's wife and my mother-in-law immediately flanked the chief, supporting him as they rushed outside. Witnessing this scene, I pulled out my phone and dialed 110, my voice trembling with panic and fear. I spoke into the phone with a choked sob. I'm in XXX village. Please come quickly and help my in-laws. We invited the whole village for a meal today, but some of the drunk guests started beating my father-in-law and mother-in-law. If you don't get here soon, our whole family will be killed. 05, enraged and seeing red, my father-in-law spotted my mother-in-law fleeing with another man in front of all the villagers. He scrambled up from the ground, grabbed a nearby kitchen knife, and charged after them. Dad, calm down. The village chief is just drunk and talking nonsense. Don't listen to his ramblings. Zachary wrapped his arms around his father-in-law from behind to calm him, but the old man raised his blade and slashed Zachary's arm, stunned and in pain. Zachary scrambled backward while clutching his bleeding arm. Seeing that her husband had even attacked Zachary, the mother-in-law panicked and dragged the village chief away even faster. It turns out the mother-in-law's true love was for the village chief. Even in a life-threatening moment, she still remembered to grab the chief's hand and flee together with his wife, but just as they finally reached the door, it simply wouldn't open no matter how hard they tried. What's wrong with this door? Why won't it open? Help! Somebody! Please help us! The mother-in-law's desperate cries were quickly drowned out by the mad swings of the father-in-law's cleaver. The father-in-law turned around, his eyes bloodshot as he glared at the village chief and his wife. The village chief was so terrified he wet his pants, immediately begging for mercy in a trembling voice. Kenneth, I was talking nonsense earlier. Zachary isn't my son, he's your biological son. Please don't kill me. The village chief's wife backed away while saying, Kenneth, you're no coward, you're the most capable man in this whole village. The father-in-law, his face smeared with blood, let out a menacing grin. Now you know what I'm capable of, but it's too late, you despicable pair. One sleeping with my woman, the other mocking my manhood. You're both going to die, perhaps due to the hallucinogenic effects of the poisonous mushrooms. The village chief in his 70s was being chased around the yard by the father-in-law, who was brandishing a kitchen knife with bloodshot eyes. Meanwhile, others who had consumed smaller amounts of the toxic mushrooms also began showing symptoms. Some were vomiting, while others clutched their stomachs and writhed on the ground in agony. Some were assaulting those around them. The more resilient elders, witnessing the deranged chaos unfolding, scrambled to move stools and climb the courtyard walls in a desperate bid for escape, but scaling those walls was no easy feat. The old man had embedded shards of broken glass along the top to deter intruders. Those attempting to flee over the walls found their hands shredded and bleeding from the glass. The elders who came for the New Year's Eve dinner jumped from the 2-meter high ground, only to crash against the perimeter wall one after another, their agonized screams echoing through the air. Some elderly folks in their 70s and 80s stood on chairs, their hands lacerated and bleeding profusely, yet too frail to haul themselves over the wall to safety. Realizing the wall offered no escape, they seized stools and sticks, frantically battering the door in desperation. As they desperately hammered at the door to flee, a blood-curdling shriek tore through the chaos. They turned back and saw the village chief's decapitated body, their faces turning deathly pale at the gruesome sight. Kenneth's gone mad. Kenneth's killed someone. What do we do? Kenneth's lost his mind. If we don't fight back, he'll slaughter us all, every man for himself. It's either us or him. We should join forces. And the old men exchanged glances, then advanced toward Kenneth with murderous intent. Seeing this, Zachary quickly stepped forward. Uncles, please don't hurt my father. He would never harm. Before Zachary could finish, Kenneth kicked him aside and stared down the others with bloodshot eyes. You old bastards, you're always the ones mocking me the most. Today, you're all going down with me. Kenneth chased a group of people all around the yard. Ack, ack, ack. For a moment, screams of agony rose one after another, and the air was thick with the smell of blood. Yvette was petrified by the horrifying scene before her. Throwing herself into Zachary's arms and pleading for help in a trembling voice, Zachary. What should we do? What do we do now? Zachary suddenly grabbed Yvette by the throat, his eyes bloodshot as he demanded furiously, last night I thought I hit you because I was drunk, but today everyone at the banquet is acting insane. It can't be the alcohol. Tell me the truth. Where did you buy that Lingji mushroom? Is it even real? Standing upstairs, I allowed a faint smile to touch my lips. It finally dawned on me that there was something off about the Lingji mushroom. Yvette seemed to have a sudden realization too, her eyes filled with guilt. She didn't drink the Lingji soup today. She must have known better than anyone that these people's symptoms weren't right. That wasn't Lingji. It was just a large mushroom I picked randomly in the mountains and quickly dried. You bitch. How dare you lie to me? Drop dead. Zachary's fist smashed hard into Yvette's face. He then flung Yvette several meters away like a rag doll. Zachary, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please don't hit me. Yvette covered her head, begging desperately for mercy in the distance. Police sirens began wailing. Within moments, several police cars pulled up outside the house and brought the chaotic scene under control. To my utter astonishment, before the police could even begin questioning, Zachary rushed up to them and pointed at Yvette. Officers, she's the one who poisoned the entire village. Arrest her immediately. Yvette, her face pale, froze for a second before pointing at me as I emerged from the house trembling. Joanne, your parents were poisoned to death by him. Zachary is the man who murdered your father. You're a pampered young lady, yet you're serving the parents of your father's killer like a maid in this godforsaken mountain village. Your parents must be turning in their graves, having a daughter as foolish as you. Zachary burst into vicious, roaring laughter, his face twisted with malice. That's right, I killed Joanne's parents by exploiting incompatible food combinations. They looked down on me. Everyone mocked me for being alive. In son-in-law, they all deserve to die, every last one of them. Watching Zachary's deranged behavior, tears streamed down my face in anguish. I lunged at him, unleashing a flurry of punches and kicks. You murdered my parents. I'm going to kill you, you fool. Go to hell and join your parents. Zachary kicked me so hard I went flying, crashing heavily onto the ground, clutching my stomach in agony. I let out a piercing scream as crimson blood quickly soaked the ground beneath me. Zachary, his eyes blazing with rage, charged over and raised his foot to kick me again, but the police intervened just in time. The police quickly lifted me into the patrol car. The mountain road was treacherous, and it took over an hour to reach the county town. By the time I got to the hospital and the obstetrician examined me, the baby had already been stillborn. In my previous life, I was beaten unconscious by Zachary and the villagers who joined forces with him. When I came to, I was lying cold and alone in a dimly lit, unlicensed clinic. I never got to see what my baby looked like fully formed in this life. Just like mothers with normal deliveries, I labored for 6 hours to bring him into the world. It's a boy. Even through the thin amniotic sac, I could tell he would grow up to be a beautiful child. Looking at the tiny baby covered in bruises, my heart felt as if invisible hands were tearing it apart. The pain so intense I could hardly breathe. My child, please forgive your mother for not being able to bring you into this world. I simply cannot bear to face the child of my father's murderer every day. Please forgive my selfishness. If you don't hold hatred for me, come find me again in our next life. I will do everything in my power to be a good mother. Lab tests confirmed that the toxic mushrooms brought by Yvette were the source of the banquet guests' psychotic frenzy. These poisonous mushrooms induce hallucinations and unleash people's most deeply suppressed emotions, while not immediately lethal. The toxin causes severe aftereffects, particularly in those who experience diarrheal reactions. The diarrhea was so severe it felt like the world was spinning, leaving them chained to the toilet, and several elderly individuals didn't survive it. The mother-in-law was stabbed multiple times and ended up in a vegetative state. When Kenneth came to and learned he had killed the village chief and left his wife in an irreversible vegetative state, he showed no remorse. Instead, with a bruised face and wide, staring eyes, he kept shouting repeatedly, "Good riddance, that scumbag and that bitch are both dead." Perfect. After a psychiatric evaluation, Kenneth was declared insane and committed to a mental institution. Yvette didn't intentionally poison anyone, but her casually picked toxic mushrooms caused several deaths and led to 2 homicide cases, due to the severity of the crimes. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison in an attempt to atone for her wrongdoings. Yvette testified that Zachary used the principle of food incompatibility to kill my parents. During their confrontation, Zachary broke free from his restraints and lunged at Yvette, leading to a physical struggle. Yvette suffered 3 broken ribs, while Zachary was rendered impotent from being bitten by her. Zachary was sentenced to death for intentional assault and attempted murder. Our family's nanny, who is also Yvette's mother, received a 10-year prison sentence for conspiring with Zachary to poison my parents. When the verdict was announced, Zachary fell to his knees weeping, begging me to sign a letter of forgiveness to spare him from the death penalty. I stared at Zachary's tear-streaked face, contorted like a clown's, my gaze icy as I spat out each word with venom. Zachary, go to hell and beg my parents on your knees to sign that letter of forgiveness. Zachary's execution took place 1 year later, on an autumn day. That entire year, I poured all my energy into the company my parents had built from the ground up. The company's performance increased tenfold, and I've become a well-known female powerhouse in the business world. Gone was the lifeless demeanor I had while serving my in-laws in that small mountain village. I had someone discreetly guide that old bachelor who tormented me to death in my previous life, posing as my mother-in-law's cousin. He took the person from the hospital back home in less than 6 months. The relentless torment drove them away. The wind howled fiercely as I knelt before my parents' gravestone, my hair whipping wildly across my face, gazing at their gentle smiles etched in stone. I bowed deeply and touched my forehead to the ground 3 times. Mom, Dad, your unfilial daughter finally brings you justice. Your murderer faced execution today. If there is a next life, I beg you to choose me as your daughter once more. In my next life, I will see things clearly and be a good daughter who always listens to you. If you want me to marry, I will marry. If not, I will stay by your side my whole life, caring for you with all my devotion. As soon as I finished speaking, 2 butterflies gracefully fluttered down and landed on the lilies I had offered to my parents, gently waving their pure white wings. Tears instantly streamed down my face. My parents always said that no matter what mistakes I make, I'll forever be their beloved daughter. If they're ever gone someday, they'll transform into butterflies to watch over me, and I'll carry their protection with me, living my life with even greater determination. Strive to live this life with joy and brilliance. Story 2. When the zombie apocalypse suddenly struck, I found myself trapped in my employer's house with very little food. My handsome neighbor got locked out of his house, and I kindly took him in soon. We both ran out of provisions, and he suddenly looked at me with intense eyes. I said, "Don't eat me, I'm afraid it will hurt." He burst into laughter and said, "I just remembered the password, I was cleaning at my employer's house when the zombie outbreak happened. My employer had left for a year and asked me to do a thorough cleaning and then cover everything with dust sheets. While I was halfway through, an alert about a global zombie outbreak came through on my phone, advising everyone to hide and wait for rescue. My first thought was, there goes my paycheck. I hurriedly tried to call my employer, but as expected, the phone was off. Stunned, I thought about how that money was supposed to support me for the coming months. How was I supposed to live now? Looking out the window, I saw chaos in the streets below, people running, cars starting, and a few shaky figures biting anyone they encountered. The screams were relentless. Was this the end of the world? Suddenly, I wasn't afraid anymore. I threw away my cleaning rag, slumped onto the sofa, and decided if I was going to die, I might as well do it in a nice place. This spacious penthouse was definitely better than my tiny rented room. Besides, even if I went out now on my little electric scooter, how far would I get? Once I resigned myself to the situation, nothing really mattered. My stomach was growling nonstop. I found a piece of bread in my bag, took a bite, and choked a bit, so I went to the fridge to get some water. Just then, the doorbell rang. My employer had told me that their whole family was gone and no one would come. Hesitant, I went to the door and looked through the intercom. There stood a handsome guy, shirtless, wrapped in a towel. Is this something one gets to see for free? I gasped in surprise and found the black and white screen unsatisfying, so I peered through the peephole for a better look. Just as I was about to drool, he started banging heavily on the door, clearly in a hurry. "Cousin, open the door," he called out. "Cousin." I glanced at a framed photo on the table, flipped it over, and there he was, standing in the center with a bright smile. I opened the door for him. He seemed surprised to see me but quickly pushed me inside and locked the door. "Where's my cousin and her family? They said they won't be back this year." "I'm just the cleaning lady," I explained. "They just ran off." "Okay, do you have a phone?" he asked, reaching out his hand. I handed over my phone. He dialed a number, but no one answered, and his frustration was evident. Soon, I learned about his situation. He lived right across the hall, meaning he and his cousin shared the lease for this penthouse, taking one half each. He had just returned from abroad and stepped out to pick up a delivery, accidentally locking himself out. No matter how he tried, the password just wouldn't work. I've got this. Unlocking it will cost 500, I said, rummaging through my large backpack before handing him a business card. In the service industry, we all support each other, whether it's unclogging drains, unlocking doors, installing security bars, or providing designated drivers. I've got connections. He didn't take the business card, looking at me as if I were a fool. Go on, I urged, pursing my lips. With zombies everywhere now, do you really think someone would come to unlock this for $500? I thought about it seriously and shook my head. So, what's your plan? I'll stay here for now. Try to think of other possible passwords and keep trying them, I muttered to myself, surprised at how someone so savvy could forget their password over the next hour. He tried various combinations: his birthday, his mom's birthday, his girlfriend's birthday, the birthday of the girlfriend before that, and even the birthday of the girlfriend before that one. None worked. The situation downstairs in the apartment complex was getting worse, and I felt inexplicably anxious. Got anything to eat? He asked dejectedly as he walked back. I checked the refrigerator, which was exceptionally clean because the owner had left for a long time. Containing only a few bottles of water, however, I found a camping pack in the storage room with some sausages and bread. He was more resourceful than me, managing to find 2 cans of food. Hand one over to me, I requested. He gave me a look. It was dog food. Seeing my disappointment, he chuckled bitterly. Let's keep it. Might as well be a delicacy someday. A chill ran through me as I gained a bit more understanding of the future. Fill up all the containers that can hold water. The water will be shut off in a few days, he instructed, reluctantly. I did as told. I filled every pot, bucket, even the bathtub. He squatted in the hallway for half the night, continuously trying passwords. He was very alert, immediately retreating and hiding whenever he heard the elevator, and he made sure I stayed silent too. I realized he was highly cautious. Through our shared adversity, we became familiar with each other. His name was Zeke. By the 3rd day, he had a stubbly beard and bloodshot eyes from lack of sleep. I had come to understand him better. It turned out there really were privileged classes in the world. He had heard about the zombie outbreak when he was abroad. He rushed back not for himself, but for his 16-year-old sick cat, Jerry, who couldn't endure a long journey. He returned to set up a refuge to face life or death with Jerry. Unexpectedly, a simple mistake, a door, separated him from Jerry. I was too panicked at the time, stockpiling supplies, fortifying doors and windows. There was so much to do and so little time, so I got distracted while setting the password, and of all days, today I had to step out, he lamented, pulling at his hair. All I could do was look on sympathetically. He was well prepared yet locked out, a bit pitiful, yet also somewhat amusing. By the 5th day, we had run out of food and ended up sharing a can of dog food between us. It was quite fishy. It's very salty and a bit bitter, he said. It's animal organs. At that point, the water stopped too, leaving us to rely on the stored supply. We won't last long like this. The water will soon breed bacteria and make us sick. I thought my plan was foolproof, he said with a bitter smile, shaking his head. By the 7th day, we were out of food and water. I sipped the remaining water to sustain myself, my stomach constantly growling in protest. I searched the house for any bit of food, but found nothing. The night sky outside seemed darker than usual. I walked to the window and looked into the distance, suddenly realizing it was a blackout elsewhere. The darkness was encroaching bit by bit. He also noticed something was off and joined me by the window, a look of despair on his face. I didn't activate the backup power when I left. If the power really goes out, the security door system I installed will lock us in, and no one could open it from the outside unless they break it down. Also, Jerry's automatic feeder and the cat litter cleaner will lose power. It will die. I didn't know how to comfort him and felt suddenly sad, before I could find the right words. He was already trying the password again. There were many papers on the floor, all with various combinations that he had tried over the past few days. The buzzer sounded. He had entered the wrong code 3 more times, and the lock would now freeze for 10 minutes. He returned to my side and looked out the window. I remember reading a funny post once about a guy with 2 keys for 2 locks. Both keys looked alike, and he always randomly picked one for the first lock, and it always worked. One day, out of curiosity, he compared the keys and tried to use them deliberately, and that time he got it wrong. Since then, every first key he picks is the wrong one. Zeke stared at me intently, his gaze piercing. What are you trying to say? I don't really know what I'm saying. A baffled cat. Actually, I was just babbling because I was delirious with hunger, trying to distract myself. I was too hungry. He stared at me a bit longer, and it was unnerving. It suddenly reminded me of a post-apocalyptic novel I read about cannibalism. Don't eat me. I'm afraid of pain, he chuckled and Walked out, 10 minutes were up, and he needed to keep trying. Suddenly, there was a noise from the elevator. It looked like someone was coming up. In the past few days, people had begun looting for supplies, others had come up, seen the two closed doors, and after failing to break them down, left. Someone's coming, come back. But it seemed he didn't hear me, or he was too focused to care. The elevator had already stopped, and I could even hear people talking, more than one, panicking. I rushed over and grabbed Zeke's arm, trying to drag him back into the apartment, but he shrugged me off and entered the code a third time. The elevator doors opened, several men stepped out, saw us, and one door opened, and quickly approached. Zeke, hurry! I watched helplessly as men wielding weapons charged towards us. Just then, with a soft buzz, the door opened. Zeke wrapped his arm around me and we quickly entered the room, locking the door behind us. In that instant, the world went dark, enveloped by the night. The entire city had a power outage. The intruders burst into the adjacent room and soon came out empty-handed. They regrouped at Zeke's doorstep, trying to break in. Zeke's door was incredibly sturdy. After a while, they left, cursing as they went. I collapsed, sitting down on the floor weakly. Suddenly, the lights came on. Zeke had been busy since we entered, familiar with the house. He had managed to restore the electricity using just the faint light from outside. An old cat came over, imposing without anger, and slowly stopped in front of me, licking my hand a few times. He accepts you now. We're family, Zeke said, bending down. He scooped me up in a princess carry, and before I could protest, he had carried me into the dining room and placed me in front of the dining table. Let's eat first. Like magic, he set up a large, three-tiered copper hot pot. The electricity was strong, and the split pot bubbled with soup. Soon, the table was overflowing with ingredients. I couldn't wait. I scooped up some beef as soon as it changed color, burning my mouth and causing my eyes to tear up, but that didn't stop me from devouring it hungrily. From tripe and tofu skin to shrimp paste and beef balls, I ate whatever I scooped up. He had been as hungry as I had all day, but he ate elegantly and with restraint. I was so full I could burst, finally sprawling back in my chair and letting out a sigh of relief. The whole city is out of power, and you're openly using lights. Won't that attract attention? I reminded him, my mind regaining sharpness. With the current lawlessness outside, he couldn't be too conspicuous. Otherwise, if someone really came to the door, his protection might deter gentlemen but not villains. The windows are specially treated. You can't see inside from the outside, but you can see outside from inside, he explained nonchalantly. Burp, it must be nice to be rich. By the way, how did you suddenly remember the password? I had been curious but hadn't had the chance to ask. It was something you said that opened my mind, and I did some reverse thinking, he replied, sounding profound, which made me widen my eyes in curiosity. Hurry, tell me, I'm so anxious. When I was a child, I had dyslexia and often reversed letters or numbers unconsciously, without even realizing it, so I assumed that when I was entering the password, I might have reversed the digits. That's it. I couldn't believe it. That's it, he smiled, looking really handsome. Over the past 7 days, we had been too tense and too dizzy from hunger to really notice each other, but now I suddenly realized just how attractive he was. I hurriedly looked down and picked up another piece of meat, swallowing my saliva. Stop eating, you'll get too full, there's more for tomorrow. He stopped me. He's quite considerate. I suddenly realized that I had stumbled into some incredible luck. If I hadn't taken this job, I might very well have been dead in my own rental by now. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Is there enough food here for 2 people? I started to worry a bit. Come, take a look, he gestured to me, and I followed him out of the dining room. I was familiar with his cousin's house, having worked there as a part-time cleaner for over a year. I had assumed his house would be of similar size, but I was wrong. Zeke's apartment occupied 2/3 of the top floor. The entrance led to a self-contained activity area, complete with a living room, bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and gym. Beyond a door was a converted storage area. He wasn't bragging. He really had done his homework on stockpiling supplies. Instead of just buying a freezer, he had built an entire cold storage room. It was filled with seafood and meats, both cooked and raw, all vacuum sealed and dated. Some of the seafood was stored before the pollution started, he explained when he noticed me scrutinizing the dates. The room where he stored canned goods was dazzling. Many of the cans didn't have a single Chinese character on them. I wouldn't have known there were so many types of canned goods in the world if I hadn't seen them here. I was familiar with the usual canned luncheon meats and fish, but it was my first time seeing such a variety of canned vegetables. What are these categories? Pickled, marinated, seasoned. You can try them out and learn as you go. No rush, he said, casually picking up a jar of pickled cauliflower. I chose a can of braised bamboo shoots. I'd seen people who loved chocolate, but never someone who filled an entire room with it. Chocolate has a long shelf life and is rich in vitamins. It's essentially a strategic resource. I noticed that since we'd returned to his place, his straightforward demeanor had resurfaced. Luckily, I wasn't too naive and could understand what he was getting at. The room for storing water was the largest, filled with numerous water barrels and 4 water purifiers, 1 operational and 3 as backups. Another room contained both solar and diesel generators, and was stocked with barrels of diesel. The other rooms were simpler, filled with rice, flour, oil, various seasonings, a medicine cabinet, a clothes room, a daily necessities warehouse, and a hardware tools warehouse. When the next room opened, I couldn't help but exclaim in awe. The room was lit up, with rows of lush green vegetables on shelves. There were also many plants, with 2 small birds perched on the branches. 2 separate small enclosures housed Rhode Island chickens. This is quite luxurious, I marveled. It's all right, the indoors simulates photosynthesis and water recycling. It's a complete ecosystem. The clean freak had even built a garbage processing room, which to me felt like a huge toy. After seeing his reserves, I silently retracted my earlier concern about whether we had enough food. What he had could last years, while others in an apocalypse might simply focus on surviving. He refused to suffer even the slightest inconvenience. A young master remains a young master, unable to endure hardships. Even in an apocalypse, he had even built a simulated sunlight room. You can come here to soak up some sun every day, get your vitamin D, and keep your skin from turning too pale. I feel like you've prepared a bit too much. I thought my cousin and her family would stay with me, but they decided to leave. Zeke explained, since you have inside information, do you know when this disaster will end? I don't know. He shook his head. My heart sank again, leaving me feeling uneasy as the last door opened. I was utterly amazed. What kind of magical place is this? A starry sky ceiling, a home theater, and snacks lined on a revolving double-layered shelf with electric buttons that moved it back and forth. I had never gone to such lengths for food before. Can I eat these? I asked cautiously, pointing to the chips on the shelf. They're all yours. Those snacks were originally prepared for my cousin's son, but since they've left, everything is yours now. Thank you so much. I jumped up, delighted like a child, and he watched me with a warm smile. My classmate's family owns a supermarket, and I've always been envious of her. I can't believe I now have this too. So much of it is mine. I stretched my arms out wide, spinning around joyfully. I'm also curious about something. You're a student. Why are you working part-time? He finally asked. My family won't pay for my tuition. They don't support me going to university, but I insisted on studying. I managed a strained smile. Fortunately, he understood not to probe further. Just then, my phone suddenly rang. Someone wanted to video call me. These past few days, the network had been erratic. Without even looking, I knew who it was. My mom's round face filled the entire phone screen. So, you're still alive, she said, instantly killing any desire I had to talk. Having recently faced a life or death situation, I did feel a bit of longing for them. But my mom had the knack for extinguishing it with just one sentence. We've run out of food at home. Go get some and bring it here, she commanded unceremoniously as Zeke's eyes widened in disbelief, and he gestured helplessly. How can I bring anything? The streets are full of zombies. Do you think I can make it there alive? You have to try at least. We can't just starve to death. Isn't my brother at home? Let him go. He's strong and capable. You really are heartless. He's my only son. What if something happens to him? How am I supposed to live? You debt collecting rotten heart, my mom cursed vehemently. Didn't you ever think about how I'm supposed to live? I blurted out, no longer able to contain my frustration. Live or die, I don't care, she said coldly, her words piercing my heart. I was stunned. Phone in hand, Zeke snatched the phone and ended the call. Do you have a masochistic streak? Why do you even talk to her? Zeke was usually very stable, never losing his temper. Even when we were running out of food, his sudden fierceness scared me a bit. Sorry, I was impulsive. He noticed my cowering demeanor and softened his tone, gently ruffling my hair. Remember, no matter what, you have to love yourself first. I nodded earnestly. If someone had taught me this lesson earlier, I wouldn't have suffered so much. Zeke opened his laptop to gather information, and I sat next to him and watched with him. The zombie outbreak has escalated globally, and the situation abroad is even more severe. Domestically, there is still no effective response plan, but efforts are being made to ensure everyone's personal safety. People are advised to stay home and not go out. The government attempted to distribute supplies with military escorts, but accidents occurred frequently, and the plan was halted yesterday. The situation is not optimistic. It spiraled out of control on the 7th day, he said, frowning deeply. He hasn't been able to contact his cousin and fears that something bad has happened to them. Without him saying it, the state of things outside Over the past few days has been quite clear, with zombies wandering everywhere, and one could easily become a victim if not careful. What do you think will happen next? I asked worriedly. For now, the water supply is not contaminated. Once there is a problem with the water, and the virus spreads widely, it will be completely out of control. Will we be stuck here indefinitely? We need to plan for the long term. I owe you my life. If I hadn't met you, I'd be gone by now. Don't mention it. If you hadn't opened the door, I'd be in the same boat. Are we like brothers in arms? No, it's more than that. We're like comrades who share the same dog food and know each other's secrets, Zeke said with a laugh, his teeth gleaming white. Why are you so professional at stockpiling? I'm a fan of post-apocalyptic novels. Since this building was constructed by my family, I set up a fortress for fun. I never thought it would actually come to use. Again, I thought to myself, it's nice to be rich. I quickly adapted to our new lifestyle, cleaning every day, scooping Jerry's litter, tending to the chicken coop, and cooking. My knowledge was proving insufficient. Each day, I used my tablet to identify ingredients from pictures. Only then did I realize that the beef slices we ate on the first day were A5 Wagyu, which explained their melt-in-the-mouth texture. What I thought were white mushrooms turned out to be white truffles. Priced by the gram, Zeke reminded me to serve some ingredients first. Consequently, our dining table could rival that of a Michelin-starred restaurant, with dishes like French foie gras, Iranian caviar, pufferfish melt, French blue lobster, German white asparagus, and Arctic clams. I thought we'd be stuck eating hot pot forever. Thank goodness for you, Zeke said, his eyes sparkling with joy each day at the sight of the diverse meals. It's mainly because you have such a rich array of ingredients. I wanted to try them all. I didn't reveal the real reason. I was simply following my foodie instincts. I hadn't tried 90% of the ingredients here and was eager to taste something new. He had downloaded 100 gigabytes worth of recipes, enough for me to learn from. Zeke ate a lot, hence he spent every day sweating profusely in the gym. I wanted to join in, but he sent me out as soon as I stepped in. You're too thin and need more nutrition. Put on some weight before you start working out. I pinched my wrist, which already had some flesh. Yet he still called me thin, but it was the first time someone cared about my weight, and it felt good. By the 15th day, the internet was down, with only occasional, fleeting signals. With the power out for so many days, I guessed that everyone's phones were dead. Sometimes, standing on the balcony looking down, I couldn't see anyone in the complex, just the occasional small groups of zombies passing by. In the earlier days, people would go out to scavenge for supplies, but now the building's doors were tightly shut. With no one coming or going, I wondered how many people inside were still alive. This is an upscale residential area where not many people live permanently. I guess the refrigerators here are just like the one at Zeke's cousin's place, with nothing much inside except a few bottles of water. The survivors in the building have also tried to save themselves. Zeke's door has been knocked on by numerous people. His cousin's door, always left open, has been raided several times. But all these attempts have been in vain. Every time this happens, I feel fortunate to have met Zeke. What are you looking at? He just came out after a shower, smelling great, waiting to have dinner with you. I turned around and walked towards the table with a smile. Today, I made chicken soup with fish maw. Although we have plenty of ingredients, we don't waste them. I was waiting for his compliment, which always fills me with joy. Wow, it's perfect in color, smell, and taste. Your cooking could be served at a state banquet now. Really? I smiled, my dimples flashing, and Zeke momentarily lost in thought as he stared at me. Suddenly, my phone rang, startling me. It hadn't made a sound in days. It was my mom. You have food. You actually have food. I turned away from the table, showing the steaming chicken soup in a white porcelain bowl on the camera, looking very tempting. So what? I was surprised that she was still alive. We're almost dying, and you still have food. Why don't you just die first? Tell me where you are. Her curses poured down like a torrential rain, engulfing me. This time, I hung up the video call, the phone screen went dark, and the signal was lost. I knew she would not bother me again. It was as if everything was over outside. The wind howled fiercely, and a heavy storm was about to hit. Zeke walked over, pulled out a chair, and gestured for me to sit. I had lost all appetite. Since birth, I had been nothing more than a blood bank for my older brother, and my family had been draining me for years. College was something I fought hard to achieve on my own, working part-time jobs to support myself. The money I earned went straight to them, and they considered giving me a few hundred each month a favor. Now, at the end of the world, seeing me alive brought them anger, not joy. What kind of family is this? It's all the same, really. My cousin's family left on a private plane. I told them I would look after them, but they didn't believe me. They didn't even say goodbye when they left, Zeke said with a self-deprecating laugh. It Turns out we were both abandoned by our families, sharing the same plight. He raised his glass of red wine, and I clinked glasses with him. I'm not good with alcohol, so I just took a sip. The slight buzz helped numb the pain. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the door, urgent, as if they couldn't wait another second. Open up, I know someone's in there. Open the door. It was the security guard from downstairs. I dealt with him a lot when I came here to work. He was rather opportunistic and always treated me poorly, making things difficult every time. This wasn't his first time here. He had knocked on the door before, still carrying a drill. He tried to break through the door, but fortunately Zeke's door was strong enough to resist without even a mark left by the drill. He's managed to survive up until now, probably because, before the power went out, he broke into several places and scavenged a lot of food. Now, he must have run out of food entirely. With no electricity, his chances of breaking in by hand are zero. Zeke ignored him, annoyed by the knocking, and suggested to me, let's go watch a movie, leave the dishes, I'll wash them. Okay. I was still lost in my own emotions. Zeke was right. Those people aren't worth it. We watched Hell's Moving Castle, but I still couldn't calm my mind. The darkness was a good cover for tears, and I secretly started wiping them away. Suddenly, Zeke put his hand on my shoulder, gently patting it, and I leaned my head on his shoulder. I closed my eyes, gradually calming down in his presence. Boom. The surroundings went pitch black. The power was out. Zeke first restored the electricity using a diesel generator. Then we ran to the surveillance room to check on the situation at the rooftop. There were 10 cameras on the rooftop, but only 9 were working. You could see the solar panels were askew, likely blown by the wind. I did reinforce them. But now it's troublesome. Zeke frowned. Isn't there still the diesel generator? I asked, puzzled. Every equipment has a lifespan, and besides, the stored diesel is limited, and it's noisy. I wouldn't want to use it unless it's absolutely necessary. Losing solar power this early is a setback, Zeke said with a troubled look. Is there a way to fix it? Only by going up to the rooftop to check. Zeke hesitated, then stood up. There's a door that leads to the rooftop. I'll go up and take a look. It's pouring rain. Why not wait until it stops? I panicked at the thought. This is the safest time. Survivors are at a do-or-die point now. They won't miss any chance for survival. You don't know how many hungry eyes are searching for targets out there. This storm is the best cover. He was right, and I couldn't argue. Just yesterday, I saw someone, driven mad by hunger, run out of the building only to be torn apart by zombies. It was horrific. Zeke put on a raincoat, opened the foldable ladder under the rooftop entrance, and climbed up. Be careful. If it's too much trouble, don't bother fixing it. Just come back safely. I called after him. He turned, smiled, and gestured an okay with his hand before climbing up. I returned to the monitors, watching the screens intently as Zeke quickly straightened the solar panels and checked the wiring, working diligently. Suddenly, I noticed a shadow appear behind him, and I couldn't help but exclaim, someone's there. He heard my voice through the earpiece and quickly turned around. In the darkness, there stood 3 people. A man, a woman, and a child. I quickly switched the screen and zoomed in, recognizing the man who was soaking wet. It was the security guard who had come knocking at our door. We had been tricked. I knew it. I knew you'd come up to fix the solar panels. Just let us in, the security guard said frantically. Did you sabotage it? Zeke asked cautiously. If I hadn't damaged it, would you have come out? You've stockpiled a lot of food. I saw you hauling it in with my own eyes. You can't eat it all by yourself, so let us, a family of 3, come in, and I'll help you fix the solar panels. As he spoke, the security guard staggered toward Zeke, his steps unsteady as if he were injured. Who gave you permission to come over? Zeke was blunt, planning to retreat. He was close to the entrance and could still make it back inside. By closing the door, he could prevent the 3 of them from entering. Let's make a deal. If you don't agree, I'll throw down all the solar panels and ruin your solar power generation, the guard threatened. I have more than 1 generator. Go ahead, Zeke replied, unfazed by his threats. Rich people are heartless. You either toast with us or bear the consequences, the guard said as he pressed a switch, causing Zeke to stumble and fall. It turned out that the guard had set up many traps nearby, and a clamp caught Zeke's leg, causing him immense pain as he fell to the ground. You refused me. Don't blame me for being rude. The guard approached with a sinister smile, intending to finish Zeke off then and there. However, just as he raised the dagger in his hand, he suddenly felt a tightness around his neck and a hit on his shoulder, causing him to stagger back and fall to the ground. I appeared on the rooftop with a nail gun in hand. Noticing the trouble, I had climbed up with the nail gun just in time to save Zeke. The shot at his neck had missed, merely grazing the skin and drawing a few beads of blood. But the nail in his shoulder had penetrated deep into the bone, causing him excruciating pain as he fell to The ground groaning, the woman and child hurriedly checked the guard's injuries. I took the opportunity to rescue Zeke and helped him to the entrance. "Don't go, save us," the woman cried out in despair as she saw us about to enter. Zeke and I exchanged glances. In these apocalyptic times, we couldn't afford to be soft-hearted. We continued on our way. "Throw it all down, let's go down together," the guard yelled, struggling to stand up. Screaming like a madman, we didn't want things to turn out this way, but there was no helping it now. "Take my child with you. I'll deal with him. He's been infected and won't last much longer. Please save my child." The woman suddenly knelt down, pleading with us continuously as Zeke paused, stopping in his tracks before he could speak. The guard, staggering, lunged at us again. At that moment, the woman suddenly stood up and threw herself at the guard, and both of them fell off the rooftop. Seconds later, we heard the sound of their bodies hitting the ground. Everything happened so quickly, in the blink of an eye. Only the child was left upstairs, all alone. A thunderbolt struck, and the boy shivered in the flashes of lightning. Without hesitation, I closed the entrance door, brought Zeke down to safety, and sighed in relief. We didn't look at the surveillance, but it seemed to have a magnetic pull on us. The boy stood motionless. Indeed, where could he go? I treated Zeke's wounds briefly. He remained silent, but it seemed like a storm was brewing inside him. My parents divorced, and my mom was set to leave the next day. I knew she would never come back, so I stood under her window, hoping she would take me with her. It was raining that day, but she didn't spare me a second glance. Zeke said softly. I understood. He looked at the little boy in the rain and was reminded of his own helpless past. I quietly hugged him, and we stood there in silence. It rained all night, and we both got up with dark circles under our eyes, simultaneously deciding to check the surveillance footage. At first glance, I didn't see the little boy and breathed a sigh of relief, but soon, I found him still there, lying motionless on the rooftop. Is he dead? Zeke impulsively pulled down the ladder. I sighed and climbed up for him, perhaps in his heart. This was like bringing himself back home from those years ago. I comforted myself, thinking, what threat could a 5 or 6-year-old child pose to us? The boy had a high fever. I checked him and found no injuries. It didn't seem to be an infection, just a sickness from the rain. I fed him medicine and some porridge. I gave him a bath with warm water, and Zeke had prepared clothes, including some children's garments intended for his cousin's son, which worked out well. Once changed, the boy looked clean and much more presentable, although he was still groggy, alternating between consciousness and unconsciousness. Zeke and I discussed it and decided it was best to remain cautious with him. We agreed to lock him in the guest room, taking care to look after him daily. Zeke's injury wasn't severe, though one wound was deep. Fortunately, it hadn't reached the bone, but it was quite gruesome. It needs some stitches, he said after careful observation. I had noticed this too, but the location of the wound on the back of his lower leg made it tricky to reach by himself. I would need to assist, despite my tolerance for hardship since childhood. This task was challenging for me. If you're scared, you don't have to do it. It's okay, Zeke comforted me, patting my hand. I can do it, trust me. I made an okay sign, bouncing off to prepare the tools with a show of ease. He had everything ready, including anesthesia, but we dared not use it. I studied the instructions for a long time, gave him an injection of anesthesia, hesitated to increase the dose, but fearing it wasn't enough, I also gave him 2 painkillers and, gritting my teeth, added a sleeping pill. I had him lie face down on the bed, my hands shaking like a sieve as I picked up the suture needle. Don't force yourself. It's really okay, Zeke said without turning around, but it was as if he had eyes on the back of his head. Leave it to me, get some good sleep, and everything will be fine, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. With the first stitch, it seemed to get better. I held my breath and stitched awkwardly. By the time I was sweating all over and put down the needle, Zeke was already asleep. Seeing his breathing steady, I felt relieved. I went to check on the boy's room, and as I approached the door, I faintly heard crying. Opening the door, his eyes were tightly shut. I took his temperature. The fever has subsided. I've also had half a bowl of the porridge left on the table. Leaving the room, I felt some regret. We were still not ruthless enough. 13. The next day, the rain stopped and Zeke was still sleeping. I decided to go up and fix the solar panels. From what I could tell, the security had only cut a few wires. I'm used to handling basic electrical tasks like fixing power strips or circuit breakers, so I figured I could manage this. It would be a waste to give up on solar power. With Zeke injured, the responsibility fell on me. As a novice, handling this during the day was already challenging, let alone in stormy weather. It was a gamble I had to take. In this situation, I needed to relieve some of Zeke's worries. I climbed up to the rooftop, keeping my body low and using the solar panels for cover. I found the cut wires and reconnected them. After finishing the repairs, I turned back to the entrance and looked up, only to see the door to my cousin's rooftop wide open. We had discussed this yesterday. They went up to the rooftop because the cousin's room door was open, which led the security to find the stairs to the rooftop. It would be best to close my cousin's door to prevent others from accessing the rooftop and potentially damaging the solar panels. Thinking this, I walked over. Upon inspection, I realized that the entrance had been forcefully broken and couldn't be closed anymore. It looked like I had to close my cousin's apartment door instead. I climbed down the ladder. The ground was wet with accumulated water, and I jumped down and rushed to the door. My plan was to quickly shut the door and return the way I came, but unexpectedly, the door lock was broken. Where did you go? I couldn't find you. Zeke's anxious voice came through the headset. He had woken up and couldn't find me. I'm fixing your cousin's door. It'll be done soon, I reassured him while I dismantled the lock and adjusted the stuck spring, about to put it back when I heard noises from the staircase. Forget about that. It's not important. Come back. I'm uneasy without you here, Zeke said anxiously. Just 1 minute. Almost done. Maybe because I was too nervous. My hands were unsteady, and a screw fell to the floor, rolling away. I had to go pick it up. I'm going to open the door. Come in immediately, Zeke commanded. Just then, there was a sudden noise in the stairwell. Someone was coming up. I didn't have time to pick up the screw and turn to run back, but the people behind me had already seen me. It's her, that wretch, enjoying her easy life here. It turned out to be my parents. My father was supporting my brother. Trailing behind as my mother ran swiftly. How did you find me? I was shocked. Your phone has a location tracker. It showed you were in this complex from the first call. Did you think I wouldn't know where you work when it was my sister who referred you? My mother said proudly, lunging towards me. Living the good life here. Well, we're here now. Zeke's door was already activating the opening mechanism, which was too complex and took time. Unable to wait, I rushed into Zeke's cousin's apartment, slammed the door shut, and braced it with my body. My mother was strong, and it took her only a few moments to break through the door. She slapped me hard, causing me to stagger back. They fell to the ground. Surprising, isn't it? We're still alive and managed to find you. I always say I'm too tough to die. Weren't you out of food for several days? If I don't survive, no one does. I raided everything from the neighbors. It turned out that they had survived by looting their neighbors. She knew I was working hourly for a wealthy boss, so she guessed my location from my phone's GPS. Seeing that I had plenty of supplies, food, and drink, they spared no effort to come after me. My dad and brother were almost upon me. How could I escape now? I broke out in a sweat, but I was more worried about Zeke's safety. I shouted, Zeke, don't open the door, stay inside. But Zeke wouldn't listen. The moment the door opened, he limped out. He had a stun baton in his hand and swung it around, taking them all by surprise and knocking them to the ground. Rosalie, run back inside, he said, attacking the three while protecting me as we headed towards his house. We retreated step by step, victory within sight, but just then, a boy appeared. His expression grim, his finger on the door close button. Jerry emerged from nowhere, lunging at the boy and attacking him desperately, but it was too late. The door closed swiftly, just a second too late, and Zeke and I were locked outside. The three of them had regrouped by now, and seeing Zeke's impaired mobility, they focused their attack on him. Zeke's actions were purely reflexive, a desperate attempt to save me. But now his leg injury flared up again, limiting his movement. My dad specifically targeted Zeke's injured leg, seizing an opportunity to kick it. Zeke fell to the ground in pain, and my dad took the chance to snatch the stun baton. I shielded him with my body, taking a couple of kicks and a harsh shock. Just when I was in despair, their attack suddenly stopped. I turned around in shock to see my brother fiercely biting my mother's neck, refusing to let go. My dad tried to help, but couldn't separate them. In desperation, he shocked my brother. That actually worked. My brother let go of my mother and turned on my dad. Blood gushed from my mother's neck. She clutched it, rolling on the ground in pain. Despite my dad's desperate attempts to escape, my brother didn't let him go. They had been hungry for days, their energy depleted, and now they were all in a weakened state, tangled together. It seemed my brother was infected. This place was no longer safe. We needed to leave immediately. We couldn't go back home. I dragged Zeke towards the emergency stairs. We temporarily escaped danger, but if we couldn't get back to Zeke's place, our death was only a matter of time. Sitting on the cold steps, we looked at each other, eyes filled with despair. I'm sorry. It's my fault. I couldn't find you earlier. I checked every room and accidentally let him out. Zeke had been frantic when he couldn't find me and inadvertently overlooked the boy. That oversight had dealt us a fatal blow. In chaotic times, the merciful are the first to fall. We were doomed by our own kindness. The boy must have resented us for not saving his parents, so he took his chance for revenge. We had naively thought, what harm could a 5 or 6-year-old do? Life has taught us a lesson. It's not your fault. It was my lack of safety awareness that brought this disaster upon us, I said hastily. No matter what, we're in this together, Zeke said, and his words made my eyes tear up. Ever since I was young, every mistake was blamed on me. I never had a chance to argue, and nobody listened, only Zeke gave me unconditional support. The true test of humanity in an apocalypse is one we both lost in one. We guarded the stairwell for 2 days. The good news was that nobody came up. The bad news was that 3 people inside were infected. Zeke was growing weaker, often falling asleep in my arms. I felt this was where our journey would end. The only way out is through my cousin's house to the rooftop. I'll distract them, and you can escape and go home, Zeke said, unwilling to give up without a final fight. What about you? I won't go. I want to stay with you, I insisted, shaking my head. Listen, if you make it back, you might be able to save me, right? He held my hand tightly, his strength passing to me. I knew I had to take the risk this time. I wanted to survive, to continue living with him. We waited behind the door in the stairwell until my dad and brother wandered out of my cousin's apartment. Zeke took off one of his shoes and threw it with all his might toward the other end of the corridor, near the elevator. The shoe flew a great distance, hitting the elevator door before falling. The sound was loud. My dad and brother heard it and moved towards it. Unfortunately, my mom was still inside the apartment. I didn't know if she was near the door. I had to take a chance. I ran barefoot towards my cousin's apartment, trying to be as quiet as possible to avoid drawing their attention. This maneuver was a gamble. If my mom was at the door, I wouldn't be able to enter. If I had to turn back, and they also turned back, I'd be trapped with no chance to escape. Fortunately, my mom wasn't at the door or in the living room. I rushed into the storage room and climbed up the ladder in one go. Despite having starved for 2 days, the food I had eaten earlier sustained me. Zeke and I had considered various possibilities, fearing that the boy might have locked our entrance door from the rooftop, which would make it unopenable from there. So, when I saw the entrance door open, I was so moved I almost cried. Once inside, I understood why the boy hadn't closed the entrance door. The ladder was hanging from above, reachable by an adult stretching their arm, but he was too short, and even standing on a stool, he couldn't reach the bottom of the ladder, so he could only watch me climb down. It was too late for him to run. I grabbed his collar and tackled him down, fearing further trouble from him. I quickly tied him up. It was now the decisive moment. Whether I could save Zeke or not all depended on this move. I first checked through the peephole. The father and son were wandering back from the direction of the elevator. Zeke was temporarily safe, hiding behind the door in the stairwell. I pulled out a fuzzy gorilla toy and installed batteries in it. Then, I opened the door, switched on the toy, and directed the gorilla toward my cousin's house. I quickly shut the door and observed the situation outside. As it moved, the gorilla let out strange cries and beat its chest in a provocative manner. Hearing the loud noises, the intruders immediately turned back. My mom also came out of the bedroom and walked towards the gorilla. My heart raced. My plan was to lure all 3 of them inside with the gorilla, then lock the door from the outside to buy time for Zeke to get back to his room. If they just stopped at the door, wouldn't all my efforts be wasted? The gorilla's batteries were fully charged. If it didn't move, the 3 zombies wouldn't move either. If this stalemate dragged on for a couple more days, Zeke would starve. I was frantically stamping my foot. My mom moved stiffly, and as the gorilla approached her, it unexpectedly crawled between her legs. I bit my lip, silently urging, "Hurry!" Finally, all 3 zombies moved to the center of the living room. The gorilla got stuck behind a sofa and started making more noise. Capturing their full attention, I seized the moment to dash out the door, swiftly shut it, and braced it with all my strength, urging Zeke to hurry. Zeke's condition had worsened. Hurrying was no longer an option. His calf was badly injured, and my dad had kicked it, causing some infection over the past few days. He was feverish and weak, struggling to crawl. The door was pushed against. I pressed back hard. They sensed something was off. My body began to slip. I needed to use all my strength to push back. Zeke, sweating profusely, was still a distance away from me. Bang! The door was slammed hard, and I was pushed back but immediately pushed forward. Again, "Go back. Don't worry about me," Zeke urged, waving me inside. "Don't worry about me. If you don't go in, I won't go in. I stand by my word." I was too exhausted to speak. All my strength was focused on holding the door. Although their target wasn't clear, their continuous battering was about to break the door down. Zeke growled and surprisingly stood up, dragging his leg and lunging forward a few steps, just enough to fall inside the door. Just then, I felt no pressure on the door, guessing they weren't leaning against it. I seized the moment, left my cousin's door, and dashed towards Zeke's house. The door at my cousin's place burst open instantly, and the 3 zombies tumbled out, falling over each other. A shriveled hand reached for my leg. I leaped forward and dove inside. Zeke forcefully pressed the door close button. The sound of the locks clicking was the most beautiful sound in the world. Both of us gasped for breath, relieved to have survived. "What about him?" Zeke turned towards the boy, angrily asking, "Send him away. I had already found a place for him. Please, I was wrong. Forgive me. I won't dare again." The boy cried out in fear, sobbing loudly. This time, I showed no mercy. When I found a moment when the zombies were away from the door, I threw the boy out. "That's where he belongs. He's one of them. I was wrong. Please don't make me go out. I'm scared." The boy's voice echoed down the hallway. But neither of us blinked an eye. "We're just scraping by in this Apocalypse, we have plenty of supplies, and the zombies can't touch us, but it's the humans who hurt us. That's the real tragedy of the end times. Humanity is the first casualty of the apocalypse. 16. With 4 zombies guarding the door, we actually felt safer. No more worrying about anyone sabotaging our solar panels on the rooftop. Life became comfortable once again after this adventure. My relationship with Zeke evolved from merely sharing dog food to becoming comrades in life and death. We never ran out of things to talk about, watching TV series together, listening to music, cooking. We were never lonely. On sunny days, we'd lounge on the wicker chairs on the balcony, listening to Jerry's purring, engaging in aimless chatter, half asleep, half awake. For a moment, in a fleeting illusion, we were still free, not confined in this concrete box. In the second year, several waves of zombies broke out in the neighborhood. I could only watch for a while before I felt sick. The world had lost its original colors. In the third year, the world grew quieter, and Zeke intercepted less and less information from the radio waves. By the 4th year, we wondered if we were the only ones left in the world. If there really is no one else left, we'll be like Adam and Eve, repopulating mankind. Zeke comforted me softly as he held me. He planted roses, and every morning when I woke up, there was a rose by my bedside. In the 5th year, Jerry turned 20 and his health declined. He lay motionless all day. One morning, he passed away too. Cat heaven. Zeke cried in my arms, his eyes swollen. You're all I have left now. I will always be with you. In the 6th year, a lot of our supplies expired, but it didn't matter. We still had plenty. However, we consciously started conserving, using less electricity and water. I gained quite a bit of weight, working up a sweat in the gym every day. Zeke's